named Urban Forum in collaboration with ISC. In addition, we are in the process of establishing a platform to link professional bodies of Sri Lanka with the unions of ISC. Since 2017, 4 undergraduates from Sri Lankan universities are selected each year to participate at CERN Summer Students Program, which is organized by the CERN. Out of the 4 students, 2 students are funded by NSF, with airfare and the cost of subsistence. This program offers participants a unique opportunity to join in the day-to-day work of research teams participating in experiments at CERN in Geneva, Switzerland. The Science and Technology in Society Forum aims to provide a new mechanism for open discussions on an informal basis and to build a human network that would, in time, resolve the new types of problems stemming from the application of science and technology. This will also explore opportunities arising from science and technology and address how to remove the barriers to use science and technology to solve the problems facing humankind. Each year, NSF facilitates participation of a renowned Sri Lankan scientist at the STS Forum conducted in Japan. The NSF is an affiliated center for the International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology since October 1993. Up to date, the ICGEB has facilitated 3 ICGEB meetings and courses in Sri Lanka worth more than $180,000 US. Moreover, ICGEB has granted $286,000 US to 7 laboratories in Sri Lanka through its CRP's ICGEB research grants. The NSF, in concord with the World Academy Sciences, or TWAS, has instituted a scheme of annual award of prizes for talented young scientists who have attained a high level of excellence in research in the fields of biology, chemistry, mathematics, and physics. CITI program has been introduced by NSF Sri Lanka in collaboration with the University of Miami, USA, for the benefit of Sri Lankan researchers and members of the ethics review committees. Under this program, NSF facilitates online learning courses for knowledge and skill upgrade of the members of the research ethics committees, students, and academia. UNESCO's Man and Biosphere program is an intergovernmental scientific program that aims to establish a scientific basis for the improvement of relationships between people and their environments. Being the Sri Lankan partner of this program, NSF has nominated Singharaja, Urulu, Kandelia, Deviyagala, Nakiyadeniya, and Wundala International Biosphere Reserves as Man and Biosphere Reserves in Sri Lanka. The National Man and Biosphere Committee, which is functioning under the NSF, provides the technical guidelines and scientific information to conserve and manage our heritage sites, as well as Man and Biosphere Reserves. Serving as Sri Lanka's focal point for many world bodies, we promote international collaboration and cooperation to ensure S&T development through bilateral and multilateral scientific cooperation with individuals, associations, and institutions. Welcome to the National Science Foundation Sri Lanka for scientific collaborations and cooperation, the nation's premier driving force in promoting science, technology, and innovation.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hope all of you can hear me well. Welcome to the webinar on writing winning proposals to secure international grants. I'm Dr. Vindhya Rankodge, the Secretary of Sri Lankan Academy of Young Scientists, SLACE, and I will be the compeer of today's event. Today's webinar specially focuses on discussing writing research proposals targeting international grants. We have invited several distinguished resource persons whom we consider as giants of different research fields, have years of experience and collaborations with international researchers. I would like to warmly welcome all our resource persons who have accepted our invitations and joined with us today to share their valuable experience and knowledge. We are looking forward to having a fruitful session with all of you. Also, I would like to welcome all the participants who might be eagerly waiting to hear from our distinguished resource persons. This would be a valuable opportunity for all of you, especially the Sri Lankan academic and research communities, young scientists, to hear from the experienced researchers all over the world. This webinar is organized by National Science Foundation of Sri Lanka, NSF, in collaboration with International Relations Office, InRO of University of Peradeniya, and Sri Lankan Academy of Young Scientists, SLACE. Our hosting partner for today is Sri Lanka Institute of Information Technology, SLATE. First of all, I would like to invite Dr. Thamara Dias, Acting Director General, National Science Foundation of Sri Lanka, to welcome all of you and deliver the opening remarks. Over to you, Madam.
Thank you, Vinja. A very good morning to all. Distinguished speakers from international organizations, Professor Shen Sol Stefan, Professor Yong Song Wei, and Mr. Adrian Whale, and from local universities, Professor Rahul Atalage, Dr. Nanda Gunwardana, Professor Janaka Ekanayaka, Senior Professor Anoma Aberatna, Dr. Ranil De Silva, Professor Tilak Gamage, and Dr. Darshan De Silva, and the head of ILD, Mr. Shant Siri, and staff of the NSF, members of SLACE and International Relations Office of University of Peradeniya, and all invited participants. At a time when we struggle to find resources for R&D needs, this webinar on writing winning proposals to secure international grants, organized by the National Science Foundation of Sri Lanka in collaboration with Sri Lanka Academy of Young Scientists and International Relations Office of University of Peradeniya, is timely and important. Even though there are many opportunities available in the globe to secure funding, Sri Lankan researchers, particularly the young researchers, are yet to learn how to write a winning proposal to get an international grant. This is extremely a challenging task. The problem may be the lack of required language skills. The proposals formulated are unfitting to the philosophy, vision, and guidelines of a particular funding source. Lapses in structuring the proposals in an effective way to attract the audience, and many other. Nevertheless, it is extremely important to harness foreign funding in order to leverage our R&D in a situation where limited funding or zero funding is available within the country in this pandemic situation. Harnessing these opportunities not only help to secure international grants, but also the links they establish will help enhancing global prominence of Sri Lanka's STI landscape and strengthening partnerships among researchers and R&D organizations. So at this webinar today, we have a team of excellent speakers to deliver the most important material to us. Therefore, it is envisaged that the shared experience and best practices will enable our participants to draw up their next proposal seeking international funding effectively. I warmly welcome our distinguished speakers and all the invitees to this very timely and important webinar. I wish you will have a successful webinar today with very interesting material to take home. And taking this opportunity to thank the head of ILD, Mr. Shant Siri, and his staff, and also the organizers from SLACE and International Relations Office of University of Peradeniya for organizing this timely event, I conclude my short welcome note at this point. Thank you and wish you all a good day.
Thank you very much, Madam. Before moving to the discussions and speeches, I would like to remind you all that if you have any questions, clarifications, doubts, please feel free to use the chat box to post your questions. We will take those questions at the end of today's sessions in the Q&A session. As the first speaker for today, we have Professor Rahula Atlage, who will be sharing his experience on the topic, why internationalization and overall funding opportunities. Professor Rahul Atlage currently serves as the Dean, Faculty of Graduate Studies and Research at Sri Lanka Institute of Information Technology. He was the Deputy Vice Chancellor of University of Moratuwa from year 2012 to 2017. Professor Atlage received his PhD in Energy Engineering from École Nationale Supérieure des Mines de Paris, France in year 1992. He has received several international grants over the years and published his research work in numerous international journals and conferences. It's a pleasure to have you today, sir. Over to you.
I will share the screen now.
Yes, sir, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hope you can see the screen, Vindhya.
Yes, we can see it, sir.
Right, okay. Very good morning to all of you. At the outset, well, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to be associated with important webinar organized by the NSF and also the entities of the University of Peradeniya, etc. And also would like to indicate that I am making this brief intervention with great pleasure and try to do the best to bring a brief message into your perspective. Distinguished participants, distinguished invitees, panelists, organizers of the NSF, and also the officials of the NSF. I have been entrusted to make a brief intervention on the internationalization and research grants. So my presentation would be in two segments, first on the internationalization and then on the some options available internationally in securing research grants. Let me start with some reflection that I have on internationalization by using the concept of 80-20, well-known concept of the Italian philosopher Pareto. So he indicated that 80% of consequences of almost all activities are of the origin and the creation or the cause of 20% causes. So I think internationalization would also fall into this domain and this category where, well, the capacity developed, capacity mobilized can be used by across the globe over a wider audience, perspective, and landscape that experience can be shared, falling in line with this 80-20 principle. Getting to internationalization definitions, well, I see that there are two prongs of definitions. First, with the process integration, calling for international, intercultural, and global dimension in all our higher education activities, such as teaching, learning, research, and other services like extracurricular, then training, quality assurance, academic administration, etc. The second prong would be the process of interchange between the nations with partnerships or national systems with partnerships or institutions of higher education with partnership. So with these two definitions or two-prong definitions of internationalization, I will then move to indicate what are the drivers of internationalization. What makes our society, academic community drive towards internationalization? First, we all know that the current or the perspective of economic development is innovation driven, and the global higher education platform provides an extremely valuable support in this regard. So this would be one important driver. Then international recognition in terms of the ranking and also the recognition of higher education institute by the peer institutions would play an important role going towards internationalization. Then research funding, we know that countries with experience when they partner with the countries with less experience, will provide a great opportunity as joint efforts for seeking research funding. Attracting foreign students, all the countries without any exception, and in particular with the South Asian region, are looking forward to attract foreign students and to have a common platform with intercultural and international exchange. Further, the driver would be the 21st century dynamics of higher education. We very well know that 21st century dynamics of higher education calls for creative, innovative thinking, critical thinking, and lifelong learning with the challenges faced with the digital era. And this is extremely important in all education activities. Finally, the driver towards the mobility, inbound and outbound, exchanging with the international entities. Benefits. What are the benefits of internationalization? Well, the strengthening role, or the role that calls for interconnected global community. By having an interconnected global community, the role of the higher education institute become much stronger. Holding reputation, especially in terms of academic reputation, with international connections, that would look for and give a very important perspective in international university rankings. As I indicated, that the next benefit would be the 21st century competencies with students, graduates, postgraduates, graduate students who would be enabled to work and live in diverse multicultural landscapes and also make use of the digital world skills in meeting the challenges of 21st century. Benchmarking, quality assurance in teaching, research, academic administration, and all the outcomes of education will be encompassed by the internationalization, and it will provide a great impetus for them. Cooperation with the rest of the higher education in the world and be in par with not being lagging behind and being left alone would be an important element. Then the networking, well, having a network among the peer institutions for common sharing of, well, and also the development of curriculum, exchange, joint research work, and even to the extent of resource sharing of using lab facilities through internet, etc. And also for sharing of student exchange, the industrial placement, etc., can be made use of through networking and resource sharing concept. Well, finally, it is the notion of thinking globally and acting locally. What are the elements? I have put several brief elements that we encounter, whether it's north or south, irrespective of in the globe. Academic partnerships, for example, articulation programs. You have a program where based on a memorandum of agreement, you can have 2 years plus 2 years in another institution based on the understanding of the acceptance of the curricula of the two institutions. Then the pathway options, completing one program, you can have a very easy pathway to follow your graduate studies in another institution, which have come to an agreement under international conditions. Inbound and outbound exchange programs that staff and students can exchange over a semester, coming into, well, going to north or coming to south, and that kind of exchange, enabling to have the students and staff working in different intercultural and international landscapes. Mobility, that means staff and student and program exchanges over a short period, then one semester, several weeks, study visits, etc. Enrolling foreign students, that enables them, based on the memoranda of understanding or agreements, to exchange students, graduate, postgraduate, and even staff. Joint research projects, we can secure funding for our joint research project with partnering with institutions with higher recognition, and thereby enabling to get onto the bandwagon of securing international grants. Joint graduate student supervision, enabling the thesis topics and research supervision go to a higher level and meeting the benchmark conditions as expected by international entities like Hotutel, as an example. Joint and dual degree programs based on the understanding of mutual understanding of the agreement of the curricula, exchange and the credit transfers, joint programs, dual programs can be of very important elements in internationalization. Finally, having a network for visiting professors or research fellows or adjunct professors for enabling the experienced staff to be mobile among the institutions, thereby sharing their experience in curriculum development, areas of research, identification of research areas, and also to be able to make joint thesis supervision when it comes to PhDs, etc. Well, there are 4 approaches in general: activity-based approach, competency-based approach, ethos-based approach, and the process-based approach. Activity-based approach are new programs, new types of teaching learning processes. For example, flipped classroom method, blended learning, especially with digital and working under new normal conditions. Then the competency approach, especially the need of knowledge, skills, and attitudes in the digital era. The ethos, new culture, embracing international and intercultural dimensions within the higher education institutes. There are certain things to take place. For example, bylaws, regulations, and also the mindset will have to be changed in embracing international aspects into the normal working conditions. And the process, integrating international into the normal process of, especially when it comes to the state-funded education system, we have a certain very robust framework. So how to integrate the internationalization concept needs a change and amendment in the dimensions of internationalization, program enrichment and diversification dimension, strategic thinking in management. So it cannot be standard management thinking and standard academic administration. It has to incorporate different elements that would fall in line with the international platforms. Intercultural norms for cooperation. There are certain maybe resistances or difficulties, I would not say resistances, difficulties, where we have to encounter and make necessary changes for intercultural norms. International research collaboration is one of the most important dimensions that we can think of. Selecting topics, going for joint proposals for securing funding, and also joint supervision to enhance the quality of the research. Strategies at 2 levels: program level strategies and organization level strategies. Program level strategies are, I also have touched already some of these: educational, research, technical, especially when it comes to technical. We can also think of the laboratory exchange through internet and via online, and extracurricular activities where we can think of joint projects, and also working towards the CSR projects where the student groups can work together under this program levels. Organization level, well, there are changes that should get adjusted in terms of vision, policy, and strategic planning of the senior management and their commitment towards internationalization, faculty level support for implementation, and also the possibility of establishing or having a unit under a special designated leadership for promoting, facilitation, and coordinating international activities within higher education institutes. Of course, not forgetting the financial planning and budgeting needed for this internationalization. What is the bottom line? Well, international collaborations will look for partnerships around the world, promoting research among internationally minded research groups, promoting research among scholars, groups, scholars, staff-student exchange, either short-term or long-term, complementing benefits for partners. Each partner will have, so because internationalization will not be one-way traffic, it should be a complementing. So the activity should be planned in such a way that both parties will benefit from the partnership. Intercultural activities like studying abroad, different learning environments, and opportunities to make friends and create new opportunities and areas, and teaching across borders can be a new dimension. Getting into the second part, the research funding. Well, I have managed to put 2 elements for research funding. First one is the LSVA portal. So I have taken several slides from the LSVA platform. Funding institutional. So if you go to the LSVA platform and look for the funding institutional, you will see something like this. This would enable funding institutional would help to identify funding opportunities for research as well as undergraduate and postgraduate fellowship. So there's a huge spectrum available. Of course, you will have to have this access to the LCA platform. And then in the platform, you have the possibility of giving, your research, key research areas that you are interested in looking for funding. For example, this slide indicates artificial intelligence, where you have searching options for opportunities, awards, and the funders. And then you can make your selection in artificial intelligence. It will appear a platform like this, funding opportunities, which will indicate the area, the funder, the name of the funder, the deadline or the status of available funding, and the amount of funding. So there are quite a lot of options, search options, where you could end up with looking for the areas and the type of funding available under this LSVA funding institutional platform. So again, another platform where you will see the based on the country, you can do a country search and fund for funding type, amount of funding, and so it's a very flexible platform. And this would have certain limited number of countries, but it's not excluded the countries in the south as well. But one advantage is that if you have a partnership with for a joint research program, this can be used very easily. The other platform is the research platform for European Union. It's, all of us know that the Horizon 2020 was in implementation from 2014 until January 2021, and Horizon InRO is the continuation or extension of probably, and where you can find this platform for funding and tender opportunities, where you can go for the funding opportunity. And mainly it is for grants. So you will see a platform like this for the grant, the type, the deadline, and the important information related to the grant will be available upon the search function, search option. And again, this is mainly for EU and associated countries, but not limited. And Sri Lanka is included as a third country category. Quite a number of countries involved stipulated there. So we have an opportunity. Our researchers can go to very specifically find out the areas that they could work, to also find the partners and also the details of deadlines and so on. And this is something that is important that we should make use of. And coming to the end, and just the last slide to indicate the importance of when providing a research grant proposal, the importance would be the development of hypotheses for investigation with very high importance. Then I can submit the funding proposal. I think this is the theme of the today's discussion, and the compliance of the grants, progress and compliance of the grants. And this is the level of importance, and we see that we have to focus somewhere in this area. And with that, I'd like to wind up my two topics that I had into consideration: internationalization, engaging with interconnected global community, that's highlighted, towards reputation in higher education landscape for higher university ranking and academic reputation, 21st century competencies toward benchmarking with international institutions, in particular quality assurance and quality enhancement, networking, resource sharing, and looking the way that thinking globally and acting locally. I have also highlighted two options for research funding opportunities through the SVA funding on institutional and the Horizon Europe that is being in place from January 2025. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation, and thank you so much for again given opportunity. Over to you, India.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us, sir. It's our pleasure to have you here today. Once again, I would like to remind all participants, if you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat box. We will take them at the end of the session during the questions and answer session. So as the second speaker for today, we have Dr. Nanda Gunawardana, who will be sharing his experience on the topic of secrets of writing a winning proposal. Dr. Nanda Gunawardana currently serves as the Director, Research and International Relations, Sri Lanka Technological Campus, Padukka SLTC. He also works as a senior lecturer at Postgraduate Institute of Science, University of Peradeniya. Dr. Nanda Gunawardana obtained his bachelor's degree from University of Peradeniya, Sri Lanka, and PhD from Baylor University, Texas, USA. Dr. Nanda has worked very closely with more than hundreds of international institutions and universities and has obtained many international research grants and coordinated with multi-million-dollar Euro research projects. He is also working very closely with many embassies to promote research and higher education in Sri Lanka. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Vindhya. Shall I share my screen?
Yes, sure.
Hope you can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can see.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Vindhya. At the outset, I would like to thank members of the organizing committee for inviting me to deliver this topic, actual secrets of writing a winning proposal. I have to say there are no secrets, of course. So I will give some tips for you because if you use those tips, I think you can get a good research grant for your future. So that is the whole objective of this presentation. Now, because I have noticed that there are so many young academic staff members, especially from universities, joining with us today. So first of all, I would like to welcome you all to today's webinar because I want to deliver a special welcome note. The reason is I have to be very honest today and tell the truth. So only few Sri Lankan scholars write competitive research grant proposal. Other than that, what all others are doing is they write some research proposals to get some kind of research allowances. So I should say around 10 to 20% get competitive international research grant. Forget about say national, at least international research grant in our university system. So because of that, I think our research and innovation culture is not so rich. But Sri Lanka is ranked 101 place in Innovation Index published in 2020. So when you compare this with developed countries like Switzerland is the number one, then the United States of America, USA, I think number 3, then China 14, because we have scholars from China and USA, that's why I mentioned that, and Japan 15, 16th, I should say. So I think we have to do a lot of things to develop our innovation and research culture in Sri Lanka. So because of that, I really like because you have joined today, spending your valuable time to learn some of the tips that we are giving to develop a research proposal. So I would like to start with the quote from the Kumartunga Munidasa. He mentioned that nation that has no innovation will not rise. He just mentioned at that time the word innovation. Now we can think about innovation and invention. So he put it in nice words in Sinhala. Alut alut de notanana jatiya nonagi. Alut alut de notanana jatiya nonagi. So I want to add another 2 things. I would like to add alut alut de nokarana jatiya nonagi. Then alut de nohitana jatiya nonagi. So I want to add that too also. Now the bitter truth is for real researchers, there is no real recognition or benefit for us. So those who are doing research. But in the most cases, we do this for the fun and also for the self-satisfaction. So we have so many constraints, but you will enjoy the journey. I'm pretty sure. The fun part, that is the most important part. You have a good chance of getting competitive grant due to less competition. In Sri Lanka, actually, we don't have big competition. So if you put up a very nice proposal, coherent, very comprehensive proposal, there is a good chance of getting a research grant. So I am telling my honest experience because I am not very old, I should say. I am the youngest, I think, in today's panel. So far, I have received so many grants. I got rejected only one time for my entire career. So in Sri Lanka, you have a very good chance. So there are so many granting agencies, at least for young scientists. You can write a nice proposal and get grant and start your research career. So there are so many ways of doing that. Now, I want to highlight a couple of points. Now, the number one is good proposals are not enough to get funds because they are getting all good proposals. Everybody writing proposals are more or less equally talented. So I put this 100-meter race because to show a couple of very important things. I think when recently we had like Olympic 2021 in Tokyo. So some of you might have seen the races. So in this particular case, that is not the photo. So we have, I think, in yellow color, you can see the famous Usain Bolt. Then blue, we have Justin Gatlin. So very competitive. See, all research proposals are good, like runners. So in runners, but they have trials. Then we have a semi-final, quarter-final, semi-final, and the final. But we give medals for only 3. Gold, medal, and silver in this particular case. Research grants are like that. So you will get very good proposals. They will get you a very good proposal, but eventually they will allocate money for say 15 to 20% of those proposals. Those are very clear. The second important thing I want to highlight is now I think you know this time Michael Jacobs from Italy got the gold medal, 9.8 the time. But if he can compete with Usain Bolt and Justin Gatlin, I don't think he can get the gold medal. That is also very important. The reason is it's also depending on the other proposals. You can put a maybe a good proposal. If they put very good proposals, then sometimes you might miss the chance. Other way around also, if the other proposals are very bad, so you might get a good chance. Now there are different type of choices. So you can write different kind of proposals. The first one is research proposal. I think our main concern today is to teach you, give some tips about to put up a very nice research proposal. There are other proposals like capacity building proposals, like Professor again mentioned that EU funded projects, some are capacity building. So then industry collaborations. These are more or less same, but we have to pitch in different ways. The fourth one is student staff exchange proposals. So I was kind of lucky to have grants for all 4 categories. But today, as I mentioned, I will mainly focus on research. Now the ways of winning, the second thing. So you can win as an individual like this way. In that particular case, you have to be self-management skills to win the individual. The second one, you can win as a consortium, like a cricket team. So you have batters, bowlers, fielders, keepers. Then you might be the captain. So you have to analyze different skills of your teams and put up nice proposals. So that is the concept. Then it's very important. You have to have some things before you start the research proposal. The number one thing is, the most important thing is to read the project proposal call, and attend, if possible, information sessions. For international grants, especially European Union and some other international grants, so they have information sessions. So the good thing is you can participate free of charge, of course. So you can go to that session and jot down some important points. I think that is the key. So you read the project call very carefully, and the second thing, underline the specific words, phrases, guidelines, and sometimes they will do some directions. So you have to underline that. The important thing is, if not, most great proposals become good proposal at this stage. So we want to write a great proposal, not good proposal. That is the main reason. So what I do is, from practical point of view, I never, my personal experience, I never use soft copies. In most cases, it's my personal experience. I download the project file and underline, sometimes highlight the most important aspects of those files. Then the third point is learn the objective of the file. Without the objective, you cannot write very specific proposals. Now, then we have to think about what is the funding agency and their objectives. So if you put up a proposal for JICA JST, that is a completely different from European Union project. Their main objectives and directions are completely different. So you cannot write the same proposal and change the title and submit to them. So you waste your time. Then why they advertise this? There are certain specific reasons to advertise project proposals. So you have to understand why they have done this. There must be a proposal. If you put up a proposal for Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they have a specific letters. Normally Bill Gates write to the committee, and you have to read it and you have to understand that. It's very important. Then third one is this call is different from previous call. So sometimes we also do some kind of silly mistake. We think that we got a grant from the previous call, so we can get the same grant from this call. So that is also different, especially for European Union projects. So I think this is my sixth European EU project, multi-million kind of project. So I think it's completely different from, not completely, somewhat different from year to year. Their format and all other stuff are different. So you have to have a proper understanding of the changes. So why they have done that? That is also very important. If they have done some changes, that has a purpose. So sometimes they also write in the project proposal purpose of doing this. So you have to understand that. The next one is communicate with funding agency. So if you have doubts, they are very, very helpful. Even for an example, in SF in Sri Lanka, NRC, they are also very helpful. So you have online. If you have any doubt, you can talk to the project officer in National Science Foundation, NRC, and you can clear the doubts. That is very important rather than writing a proposal with doubts. Then next one is analyze your competitive advantage. So we all have some different advantages. So I will tell a couple of advantages. First, so in some proposals, this is for young scientists. The definition of young is different from funding agencies. For an example, less than 40 years. So in that case, you know, this is for us. This is for us. Then in some particular grants, like Third World Academy of Science to us, they specially mention this is for female candidate. They give priority, I should say, female candidate for the young scientist kind of thing. So then you know this is for you. Others cannot compete with you in this particular case. In some EU grants also, they have very special reasons to advertise the grant. So you have to get the competitive advantage. Next, have a sense about probability of getting funds under particular call before you start. So we have to have a common sense about the probability of getting this fund. So in my case, so I think if I can get my probability is more than 50%, I read the proposal very carefully and I start to write the grant. So I think that is also very, very important. Now, there is a quote from 6C. Success occurs when opportunity meets preparation. There are two things. If you want to be success, you have to have an opportunity. That's project goal. Then preparation is the key. So I think Benjamin Franklin once told, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So without preparation, you cannot put up a nice proposal. So I got this stat from the National Science Foundation of United States of America, USA. So I think we don't do that kind of analysis in Sri Lanka. More than 15% of proposals miss important part of instruction, guideline, etc. So then they have a very easy choice. They reject these 15% of proposals. Okay. In Sri Lanka, maybe more than 15. Plan well ahead. So planning is very important, as I mentioned earlier. So first thing, select the team. That's also important. Individual team. So individual, it's not means that you are writing proposal with yourself. So you can consult senior scientists, those who have received the previous proposals. When I came to Sri Lanka in 2012, I always talk to some of my teachers in University of Peradeniya, those who have done and are doing research. So I show my project proposal to them before I submit. So I'm not going to tell the name, at least 2 to 3 staff members, those who are very successful in this research field. So you can get support, that is important. Even now, as I am not very senior researcher, I should say, but still I support to young junior members when they develop a proposal. I tell maybe you can change this, you can do kind of small changes, because we have to put our chest little ahead compared to the other, like a 100-meter race. Okay. Then as when we have a group, then collaboration, cooperation, and punctuality are more important than smart breaks. So that is my philosophy. So collaboration, cooperation, and punctuality very important, because when I manage a proposal, when I write proposals to others, rather than if they think they are very smart, they have published a lot of things, and they don't have good collaboration, then very difficult to write a good proposal. Then once you know about the, I'm talking about now the large scale research done. So then in that case, even for small scale research done, you can conduct a brainstorming session. Then there are 2 very important aspects of the brainstorming session. You can see as I highlighted. Exigence means why they are personally interested in the topic. So our group member should be personally interested. Otherwise, you cannot just put them as a group member. Then the cardio. So that is why this is a relevant and timely topic for others. It should be relevant. Write down their current understanding of each topic and enthusiasm. That is also very important, because in these days, I think very recently, you can get a lot of proposals for multidisciplinary research teams. So we have sociologists, scientists, then one from engineering, one from medicine. So you can build very nice multidisciplinary research team. Then you can compete with any scientist in the world. So I should say I have done that. So I think Professor Sunshul will explain, because he has a greater experience than me. Then next point is preliminary data. So if you can collect some preliminary information or the data for your next proposal, that is a very good plus point. Now for the capacity building projects, so you can conduct interviews, surveys, and everything before you start any project. As Professor Attalage mentioned, now our next EU call in next year February. So I already started putting up a proposal. Then I gave some work to some of my junior staff members, I should say, to get the background information to write a big proposal. So I think that is very important, and conduct interview surveys, because when we put that background information, so everybody can see that we have done a fundamentals. We have done some work, hard work to prepare this proposal. I think the next one is obvious. Assign some preliminary work to your group members. So if we are project managers, we can do that. Then we have to have a thorough literature search to identify the gaps. The most difficult task is satisfying people. If you're married, you know that, right? Satisfying people is a little bit difficult. So especially reviewers when it comes to research. So how to satisfy reviewers? That is the most important thing. You need to convert complex ideas into simple linear text, figures, and tables. Then they can understand. They know, at least they can act as they know better than us. So in most cases, they know better than us. Some specific cases, for the specific scientific projects, sometimes they might they don't know better than us, right? So our entire objective is to convince, not ourselves. So once we put up a nice proposal, we convince ourselves. That is not the case. They have to be convinced. So we have to convince reviewers, and convincing them is tough. Please understand. They may also look for weak points in your proposal. In most cases, I also work as the reviewer. When you get a lot of proposals, we analyzed good point, and also we jotted down weak points, because all proposals are good, no. So if you have a lot of weak points, then there is a less chance of getting this research proposal. They also look for evidence. Evidences are very, very important. Without evidence, you cannot predict anything, you cannot tell anything. The last point in this category, writers and readers see text, graphs, etc. differently. If you are a teacher, you know that better than me, because sometimes our master student, PhD student, and probably undergraduate student, they want to convey their message, but we understand in different way. You can see this cartoon. So they will tell you something, but the professors, they will understand it differently. Same case for the reviewer. So we are trying to tell something. If they understand that in different way, so that is a catastrophe. Okay, you will not get the grant. Then we have to satisfy the funding agency. We have to address all requirements mentioned in the grant code. Not most, it is all. All. Then we have to satisfy collaborators when we want to develop a proposal. So how to do that? We have to distribute appropriate workload and budget for them. So we have to satisfy in that. Now, next point is identify the gaps. So if you cannot show gaps in one particular proposal, you will not get funds. That is for sure. So how to show the gaps? So normally we use negative words to show the gaps. For an example, nobody, none, no information. That says there is a gap, nothing. What was not done? If you want to put a scientific proposal, what was not done in the literature in the past. Then very nice thing, wishy-washy approach, no wishes or something like that. So we cannot say in 2020 Sri Lanka will be a prosperous country. No branch. It's for politicians, not for scientists. You have to show the evidence, right? So that is very important. No wishes, no wishy-washy approach in research funds. Then don't. What should we do not do? Don't use the best of our knowledge. The terms like that, to the best of our knowledge. Most of the previous research, only few of other researchers have done that. So it is kind of vague statements, I should say. So best of our knowledge means probably you don't know about the subject very well, right? Most of the previous research, something like that. So we don't recommend that kind of words. Then our objective should be very clear. So don't use to study, especially in scientific proposal, I am telling, not the capacity proposal. To study, to investigate, to study what? No specific, to investigate anything. Use the scientific work to determine what? To develop or construct something, to solve some problem. Those are very objective words. Okay. Then next one is management. As a Sri Lankan, we are not very good at, right? So time management is most important. You have to think about can we allocate significant time to develop a proposal, because our time schedule may be during exam times and sometimes semester, marking and some other project meetings. So you have to have a kind of proper plan, right? Without planning, you cannot manage time. Without managing time, you cannot write a good proposal. The second one is scope. Scope is very important. So we have to have clear-cut boundaries of the project. So no more, no less. Okay. Otherwise, you cannot write a good proposal. Then budget. So that is my expertise. Let me. Budget. Okay. Number one rule. This very important rule. Don't be greedy. Ensure good value for the money, because reviewers are smarter than us now. They always check the value for the money that they want to give. So that is very important. Don't be greedy. So another important thing is, once you get the proposal, sometimes after getting proposal, you might think put a lot of money, I have to put a lot of money at that stage. No, not the case. Okay, you have to have a proper understanding. Then don't try to buy too many instruments. Add money only for the people who are needed to accomplish the task. So you might, if you need 1 hour, add money only for 1 hour. If you need 1 postdoc, add money for only 1 postdoc. 1 technical officer, do it honestly, right? All activities should be covered. Allocate enough money for your co-investigators and collaborators. Some are not very good. They think they are the best, so they allocate 50%, especially for the capacity building grant for their university, and allocate another 10 to 50 for all other partners. So reviewers don't like them. So they are asked the question. It happened to some of our collaborators. They ask the question, what others are doing. So you allocate only a very small percent, especially for capacity building project. So you have to have a proper understanding about the budget. So in most of my international collaborations, I should say, when they prepare a budget, they send to me just an answer. So don't be greedy. That is also very important. So I think that's all I want to discuss with. I just gave some tips. I didn't discuss some comprehensive scientific way of writing the proposal. I think we need at least 2 hours to discuss that. But once again, I would like to wish you all, and please write grant proposal. It's a fun thing. So once you get done, you will see the difference. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us, sir. It was actually interesting, and I hope participants have gained required information and knowledge, especially on writing grants. Once again, thank you very much for joining with us today. Also, I would like to remind you all that if you have any questions and clarifications, please feel free to use the chat box and Q&A box to post your questions. We would take them at the end of the session today. So, as the third speaker for today, we have Professor Janaka Ekanayaka, who will be sharing his experience on the topic, how assessment process, evaluation criteria, and guidelines matter. Professor Janaka Ekanayaka currently serves as the Chair Professor of Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering, University of Peradeniya. He obtained his Bachelor's Engineering with a first-class honors from University of Peradeniya in 1990 and the PhD from University of Manchester Institute of Science and Technology, UK in 1995. Professor Ekanayaka has published more than 100 papers in referred journals, more than 100 papers in conferences, and also co-authored around 7 books. Professor Ekanayaka obtained CVCD Excellence Awards, recognizing him as the most outstanding senior researcher in the field of technology, science, engineering, architecture, and information in 2018. He also obtained NSF Research Awards for Scientific Excellence in 2018. Professor Ekanayaka will be joining with us soon. Until then, we will play his recording of his talk.
Evaluation criteria and guideline matters. Uncle J.B. Ekanayaka, attached to the Department of Electrical and Electronic Engineering of the University of Peradeniya. In this presentation, I'll talk about the funding cycle, assessment method, and criteria. Remember, obtain funding for a research grant will be very tough. There are skilled, established researchers who are regularly applying for research grants. So with them, you have a high competition for research applications. Therefore, you need to remember that there is a tight line between the fundable research grants and not fundable grants. So your research proposal should be truly excellent. It should be based on excellent based on the scientific excellence, strategic relevance, economic, social, and other impact. Then timeline and promise, value for money, staff training potential, and industrial and stakeholder value. So let's look at the funding cycle. Let me take you through this cycle. Usually the cycle starts with you writing a proposal, then you submit the proposal, and the funding body will do an check to check whether your proposal is in line with their strategic outlines, the aims, objectives, and whether it has the correct ethical considerations. Then they assign your proposal to the committee, and they introduce. They appoint what you call introducing members. I will explain the purpose of the introducing members before the meeting. Then your proposal will go to an external review, and the external reviewer will send you the proposal with their comments. Usually you get comments and some marking scheme. If the proposal is poor quality, you may assign 1 mark. If it is exceptionally good, you will assign 6. In some cases, you were given an opportunity to respond to the comments, but often you will not get any. Then your proposal will go in front of the committee. Remember, the committee has only a limited period of time to assess each proposal because they have so many proposals in line. So the introducing members are the people who are going to elaborate about your project, your proposal. They will talk about the importance of the proposal, the scientific potential, required resources, and they will also present the review comments and the review of scores. And then committee decide whether to fund the proposal or not, and then the fund, they will put them in the fundable and not fundable blocks and give to the funding body, and they take the decision. Often, if you write 10 proposals, 9 you will get the refused decision. 1 or 2 you may get acceptance decision. Then if it is a refusal, you will again start the cycle. And this cartoon shows you how difficult to get your project proposal acceptable for funding. Now, remember, the funder may have so many goals at one time, so there will be multiple funding committees, and these committees will have strategic priorities, and your proposal should be aligned with those strategic priorities, and also their aim objectives that they define in their code. Best that you use their terminology and phrasing keywords to describe the science area of the project. And if it is aligned, that allows the peer review to be started with. Now, these 2 boxes show the lines from the funder and what he wrote in the winning proposal. The lines from the funder says those responses are gender responsive and are culturally appropriate, community specific, and based on local needs and content. In our title, we had these lines: the socio-economic impact for women, children, and underprivileged groups. And immediately the title reflects the strategic requirements of the code. That is very important. And usually, based on the assessment criteria, as I told you, your project will be given marks 6 to 7 points. Exceptional proposals, 1 to 4, bad proposal. I'll read about what is required to be an exceptional proposal. Work that is at the leading edge internationally, addresses all the assessment criteria, and meet the majority of them to an exceptional level. Likely to have significant impact on the field. Now, if I highlight this one, addresses all the assessment. Remember, every funding board has an assessment criteria, and it's very important that we address them and align with their assessment criteria. The excellent proposals are the proposal that carries work that is of high international standard and addresses and meets the majority of the assessment criteria to a very high level, will answer important questions in the field. Again, the assessment criteria play a role, and you can see the very good proposal assessment criteria should be met with the high level, and similarly for good and you can find unfundable projects as well. When you look at the number of proposals and put them into the, usually you have very few in the exceptional group, many in the good or very good range. So you can see that these margins are very fine between the funded and unfunded project. So anything that you have in your proposal is much important. Ensure all aspects are fully considered and conveyed properly in the proposal. Do not assume that a little thing is not important. Everything is important. And if I come back to the role of the introducing members, as I told you, the committee will discuss a proposal for a limited time. So the introducing members are the people who present your proposal to the committee. So they play an important role. They will brief overview of research. They will tell what is the hypothesis, what experiments the proposal writers are proposing, what do they hope to discover, a summary of the external given comments and scores, the strength and weaknesses of the proposal according to their opinion, specifically the science, important, excellent, research environment, track record, suitability of the value of money and justification of research. Because somebody else is present a proposal to the committee, your proposal should be well structured, easy to navigate, and have accessible language. Do not put technical jargon too much, because some of the introducing members may not understand all the areas. Now, the frequently asked questions by the committee are: is it top quality international science? Is it addressing an important problem? Is it novel and exciting? Are the aims and potential outcomes of the clear? Does the accompanying data support the proposal? Is the work feasible? Is it risky? Is there a pathway for all the potential impact of the research? Can a non-specific specialist understand why the work is important? So these are the frequent questions the committee asks. They will ask the question to assess your proposal in terms of feasibility, credibility, importance, novelty, strategic alignment, project focus, design, risk, responsibilities, and structure. Particularly under feasibility, they may assess your proposal based on various things. They may say that there are awful lot of you can't do it in the time frame. The project is overly ambitious, timelines are very tight, and the credibility they may ask: do the research team has skills to do the proposed work? What is their track record? Do they have right team? Remember, selecting the team is very important. You shouldn't have too many members doing the same thing. You must have the diversity in your team. They will look at the importance of the proposal, the novelty, what is new in your proposal, the strategic alignment, as I told you also, the project focus. They may say that you are trying to do too much, so it's not focused enough. The design, is this approach really robust enough? The risk, responsibilities, the structure, the governance, sustainability, and more importantly, outcomes and impacts. Remember, these are two very important aspects of your project to which you must pay a lot of attention. What are the outcomes? What are they delivering? Who is going to benefit? What differences will this make? And finally, the budget discussion. So they will look at why fund this project and why now. Remember, we will put a lot of effort to tell why fund this project, but we may not talk about why now in detail. So make sure you address both. I'm going to give you some insight from a rejected proposal that we wrote called Erasmus funding. This was written by a few members, two of my colleagues from UK and myself and InRO. Of course, we were not successful, and they had a criteria for relevance of the project. They have won 30 points for that. And for our project, there were so many positive points. I will read in 15 lines. Fits well with the objective of the capacity building. So we align properly. The target group of the project target identify the use of active learning approach is innovative. But the negative points are that the objectives are too generic. You can see that, and it says are divided into too many specific objectives. Fail to describe the academic and management activities. Inadequate information on the involvement of students in the needs analysis. So you can read the rest from the slide. Similarly, the second criteria was the quality of the project design and implementation. Again, it carries the point. Under specific point, it says clearly specify the postulated to most activities. A balance between the working staff phase in each phase are allocated budget. The monitoring mechanisms cover both offline and online. However, there were so many negative points. The budget is inappropriated in respect of the contracting cost for activities. The overall project design is sufficiently developed. There is also insufficient information on the risk and related mitigation measures. So you can see that every single point is very important. The third criteria was the quality of the project team and the cooperating arrangement. And you can see that there are a lot of good points, but they also had some negative points. For example, the distribution of tasks and responsibilities not balanced. So, they will even look into minute things. And finally, the impact and sustainability, again, 20 points were given, and we had a lot of negative points there. So, our project was categorized under group 2. Their group 1 was the applications of very good quality, getting scores between 75 and 100. There were 132 applications out of 1,500. The second group, our project was carrying marks between 60 and 75. There were 539 applications in that category, but only 32 was selected for funding. So you can see how tight this funding, obtaining funds are. So, basically, I was trying to give you an insight to how you should align your project with the criteria defined in the project goal. So you must pay every attention to single points in the evaluation criteria in the funder score. And also remember that there is always a fine line between funded project and unfunded project. So passing that fine line, you must, one, you must have a lot of experience writing proposals, or you must have members in your team who can write good proposals, and two, you must consider every single point so that make sure you pick the funding criteria very carefully. So thank you very much for listening. I'll be available for question and answer session later on.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us, sir. For your information, Professor Janaka Ekanayaka will be available during the Q&A session. So if you have any questions regarding his presentation, you will be able to get them clarified. Once again, thank you very much for the recording of the talk, sir. We are looking forward to have you live at the event. I would like to remind you all again, if you have any questions, clarifications, please feel free to use the chat box and Q&A box to post your questions. The next segment of today's event is once again an interesting segment. It is dedicated to discuss about international funding opportunities. This would be a very valuable source of information for all of you who are exploring international funding opportunities for your research work. We have 3 distinguished resource personnel joining from different parts of the world, despite of the time zone differences. We highly appreciate your presence and contribution towards the success of today's event, sir. As our first international speaker for today, we have Professor Stefan Schensul, who will be sharing information about the NIH USA program. Professor Schensul is an emeritus professor of public health sciences at University of Connecticut School of Medicine, where he has conducted domestic and global research, taught and mentored students in medicine and the master's and PhD programs in public health and medical anthropology from 1976 to the present. Professor Schensul has continuous funding from the US National Institutes of Health for the last 2 decades, including from the National Institute for Mental Health, the National Institute for Alcoholism and Alcohol Abuse, and for Fogarty International Center. He began his involvement in Sri Lanka in 1982, collaborating with Professor Herbert Aponzo and his team on community participation in health in Mahaweli C and Mavanal. His involvement in Sri Lanka has continued to the present and included faculty exchange programs, health social science training, and research on youth and sexual risk, and most recently CKDUs in Vilkamoor Secretariat in the Central Province. Professor Schensul, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and I appreciate greatly being invited to this important gathering and hope that the comments of the previous speakers, which were well done, and what I can add, helps our young researchers to be successful in developing proposals. Now I'll share my screen. And And let me. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yes, sir, we can see.
Okay. Let me tell you first that I have about 15 minutes, and the story of securing funding from the U.S. National Institutes of Health takes really more like 15 years to figure out. I'll do my best, and I think it a complex place, but well worth it when you see what the opportunities are. First of all, NIH is the largest biomedical research agency in the world with a budget of $41.7 million US dollars. It has both a capacity for its staff to do research, so important intramural research is getting done, but 80% of the grants are extramural, going to universities and research institutes, both in the US and around the world. In 2020, 55,000 or so awards were made to 300,000 researchers. As you can imagine, an even larger number of researchers had their proposals rejected. So let's start out with the structure. There are 19, so it's called the National Institutes of Health. And as a result, there are 19 institutes. And you can see, I won't go over each one, but if you were interested in chronic kidney disease of unknown etiology, then you would want to particularly look at NIDDK, the National Institute for Diabetes, Digestive, and Kidney Diseases. If you were interested in drug abuse, then NIDA, the National Institute for Drug Abuse. If you
Professor, sorry to disturb you. Can you please put into the slide mode? Then it would be better. The presentation mode.
I'm in presentation mode. I hope you can see it.
We don't see the presentation mode. We see in the slides view.
Sorry, I'll go back.
It's okay.
Can you see it now?
Not yet, sir.
I've sent another copy. Can somebody put that up on the screen?
Let me see. Sorry to trouble you.
I'm sorry that I'm troubling you.
No, it's totally okay. Let's get this figured.
Nandeshana may have slides.
Yeah, I will do the sharing, Prof. So you could stop sharing from your end now. I will start.
Okay. Thank you, Shamin. And I'll just tell you to change.
So this is the slide 1.
Yeah, and and that's on screen mile. So let's skip that and go to the next slide. Now I'm okay, and the next one after that. So there really are really important to relate to a particular institute that comprises your interests and your focus, whether drug abuse or environmental health or arthritis or diabetes or aging, alcohol abuse, whatever your particular focus is, there for the most part an NIH institute that's reflecting that if you're involved in health research. Next slide. In addition to institutes, there are centers. There's a clinical center, a center for information technology. there are two that there's an advancing translational sciences, moving from the bench to the clinic to the community. But I want to emphasize the third one on that list, and that's the Center for Scientific Review. And in addition, I meant this to be a bullet on its own, Fogarty International Center. So let me talk a bit about Fogarty, and that's coming up. I also want to mention that it's not the centers, it's not the institutes that issue the proposed funding opportunities. It's really multiple centers that do that. So when you look at a particular set of guidelines, you'll find that multiple centers are mentioned. So you have to look at the guidelines and also look at the interests of a particular institute. Next slide. And the Center for Scientific Review organizes the review process. So if there are three kinds of program guidelines. The first is a program announcement, a statement of new or ongoing extramural activity inviting applications for grant support. The next one is a NOSI, as we call it. It highlights a specific area of research and usually of a time, with a time limit. For example, the whole COVID guidelines that came out for opportunities for funding in various aspects of COVID involved a NOSI and encouraged people to get in proposals that would be reviewed very rapidly. And finally, there's a request for applications. This is a formal statement that solicits grants or cooperative agreements that are in a very well-defined area in which NIH wants to make progress in that specific area. PAs are generally more important as an ongoing process, whereas requests for proposals and NOSIs are relatively time limited. Many of the RFAs may not even be possible to resubmit to if the proposal is turned down. They may be just one and done, as we say. Obviously, several of our speakers have said, read these guidelines carefully and know which of the institutions best that you should direct the proposal to. So the nature of the NIH process involves both a combination of these guidelines and aiming the proposal to a specific institute. Next slide. There are many types of NIH grants. R25s and K awards, training grants that may involve opportunities for you as young researchers to bring you to the US, to bring US faculty to a low or middle income country. K awards, there are some international K awards that will pick up your salary plus expenses plus opportunities for a pilot grant. There are conference grants. There are research infrastructure grants, which build up the capacity of a particular institution. There are pilot grants, particularly the R21, R34 is a little bit more limited to National Institute of Mental Health. But R21s are proposals that don't require a lot of preliminary data, generally are available for 2 years and $275,000. A small grant program called the RO3 is $50,000 for each of 2 years. And then, of course, there's the gold standard. There's the large grants. These are generally maximum, but can exceed 500,000 per year for 5 years. Where all of us who apply to NIH on a regular basis are usually seeking those grants. And there are others. I won't go into all the details. Next slide. But I want you particularly to focus on the Fogarty International Center. Now, what you want to do is go to nih.gov and you'll get all sorts of guidance to these various locations. You want the guidance to the institute that you're see yourself as most affiliated with if you're generally involved in health and medical sciences. But you also want Fogarty International Center because they support clinical and applied research and training for both US and non-US investigators from low and middle income countries like Sri Lanka. So what they'll do is train US researchers to expand their work internationally and to train non-US investigators from low and middle income countries to add a component of their understanding of both the NIH, its requirements, and the advances in that particular research area. Fogarty also facilitates exchanges among investigators, providing training and opportunities for promising research initiatives. They fund more than 500 projects and about 100 US universities in collaboration with colleagues. So this is the one area in which a US university or research institute needs the LMICs, requires the LMICs, institutions to participate. And much of the grant is based on the quality of those researchers from low and middle income countries. They support training in the US researchers in LMICs, and grants for collaborative research. Our chronic kidney disease of unknown etiology involved collaboration with the University of Peradeniya and with Kandy Teaching Hospital. And we wouldn't have gotten that grant unless we had developed those collaborative relationships. Of late, the Fogarty has funded directly so that the LMIC institution is the grantee for the grant. Those are another kind of grant you might look out for. And then there are training grants, chronic disease, HIV, infectious diseases, mobile health technology, and many others. All of these are listed on the Fogarty International Center website and should be reviewed consistently. They change every month, and they're the place to learn what kind of funding is available, both for training and research. Next slide. So the question is how to start. So I've been emphasizing the need to monitor the NIH website and those institutes related to your discipline and to the Fogarty International Center. It's required that all funded grants be listed on the NIH website, and you can identify who in the US has training grants and research in your topical areas and contact them. Send them an email. If they don't respond, try again. If they fail to respond on the second time, don't press it, but frequently you'll get a response. So if you contact these researchers, what are you offering them? You're a young faculty member. You're offering them the opportunity to work in Sri Lanka. Where is one of the best places in the world to look at climate change? In Sri Lanka. Where is one of the best places in the world to look at chronic kidney disease of unknown etiology? Sri Lanka. And we can go down a long list of the opportunities that you can provide through your contacts in the population, in laboratories, in the clinical settings, if just another one that's occurred to me is, where is the best place in the world to look at dengue fever? Fortunately or unfortunately, it also is Sri Lanka. So you've got a lot to give in this situation. Next, identify the appropriate grant opportunity vehicle, whether PAs or NOSIs or RFAs, that you think you could be competitive of. Now, that also may involve a collaboration with a U.S. institution. If you're a young researcher, it does work out well to have a more senior researcher in the U.S. that you can collaborate with, that you can provide many elements of the proposal, that he or she can also do the same, that you can read each other's material, and it's a true collaboration. Be sure, however, that you're not linking with somebody who's using you but not giving you enough recognition in these proposals. So we're looking for an equity in the collaboration process. So then carefully, and again, our earlier speakers have emphasized examining eligibility. You don't want to work like crazy and then find that somehow you haven't met the goals of the particular project. And then one thing that's very important and that you can do now that there's Zoom and other virtual technologies is to communicate your ideas first in the form of a written abstract or a specific aims page. I'll get to that in a moment. To the program officer. Each grant has a program officer assigned from each institution. So let's just say that there's a series of grants. There's a grant for chronic kidney disease. And listed in the back are the series of institutions that are involved and support that grant. Each one of those institutions will have a program officer assigned to that with a name, an email, and an identification of their position within the institute, and that it will allow you to contact them first by email with the written material and then ask them to set up a call. Next slide. Now, unfortunately, there's a great deal of bureaucratic preliminary things to set up when you're going for an NIH grant. I won't go through all these details, but the federal-wide insurance is an insurance around human subjects that puts you on a list. I believe that the University of Peradeniya, for example, has a FWA number, but many of the universities may not. Then there's a DUNS number that deals with financial aspects, and that's also relatively straightforward. Registering your institution on the NIH ERA Commons is the preliminary to all the researchers that you're working with applying for an individual username that goes on your BioSketch. I'll talk about BioSketch in a moment. Establishing the principal investigators, and I want to make a point about it. It used to be from 2010 and before, there could only be one principal investigator. And generally, when there's a collaboration, that's the US principal investigator. Now, there is multiple principal investigators. And that's a relationship you want to be sure you establish, that not only is the US researcher, if you're collaborating, a multiple investigator, but multiple principal investigator, but so are you. Co-investigators also play a key role. and key personnel as well. I think it also important to know that some of the grants, and this is part of reading the grant, is that as an international or institution, you qualify to submit a grant. If that's the case, you can go for it and even be the grantee institution, although many of the grants don't have that criteria. Now, you need CVs for all the PIs and co-Is on the NIH BioSketch form, and that's all guidelines you need to look at carefully because it requires a restructuring of your CV to include all your honors, your positions, the 5 areas with supportive publications in which you've contributed to science, your prior grants, and other things. So be sure to look at that carefully. Prepare your institution for budgets, especially the bursar. This is a little bit complicated for some of the institutions, and I think important to make sure that you talk to Nandana Gurdwardena to have your budgetary process and sign-offs ready to go even before you start. Searching the literature, PubMed, Scopus, and others becomes very important as you develop your grant. Identifying collaborators on the US side, I went over that, and developing a research and intervention theoretical model is another important aspect, even before you write. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. I just want to spend a moment on this and I'll rush through the rest. This is an outline for almost all grants. The training grants might be somewhat different, but for the research grants, this is the outline. For an R21 and an R03, those two more pilot and preliminary grants, you get to have 7 pages. The 7 is 1 page for specific aims and 6 pages for the rest. If you're submitting the golden opportunity of an R01, that's 12 pages plus a specific aims. What you'll find is that you will end up writing far more than 13 or 7 pages, and that you have to look at practically the significance of almost every single sentence. The specific aims become the argument you're proposing for why you've established the specific aims of this grant. I usually start off, but everybody has their own style of doing this, of the global importance of the problem. NIH wants you to work internationally, perhaps, but they also want to know how it's going to affect the US and many other countries. They want you to describe the Sri Lankan manifestation of the problem, the shortcomings of existing approaches. I think one of our previous speakers made this point. The approach you're taking that fills these gaps and meets those shortcomings, leading to your specific aims, usually not more than 3, but it can be 2 as well. And sometimes leading to a very short statement, since that's really squeezing it, that indicates the importance of your contribution and the importance of addressing these issues in the country and in the globe. The significance section provides the opportunity for a literature review, but it's not just a literature review. It has to be an argument all through that moving you towards the nature of the approach you're taking. So it's global and country distribution, it's theory and component parts of the approach. It's preliminary studies and data that you've used. Even though the R21 doesn't require it, you want to put in any preliminary studies, even if it's an R03. And finally, a new section that they put in just recently called the scientific premise. What is your underlying structure of how you're approaching this problem? The next section is called innovation. What makes this proposal different from others? Again, another point that was made earlier. And approach is includes who are you collaborating with? Where is the description of the population and context? The methods, including sampling, instruments, and measurement. And by the way, NIH very much appreciates existing instruments, unless you're going to test and validate your own instrument, which will take a lot of resources, and usually they prefer having that done before. Existing instruments that have shown validity cross-nationally becomes important. And then a very significant piece on data analysis that should mirror those specific aims. And finally, not counted in the 13-page limit, you can take all the time and pages you want on protection of human subjects. It's clear in writing a grant like this, it takes a village. You can't do it on your own. Nobody does an NIH proposal on their own. And so you want a series of collaborators, you want the points made about timeliness, you want people to contribute at the right time, you don't want this squeezed at the last minute. Next slide. Other materials for submission, I'm going to just run through very fast. A cover letter that makes sure it gets to the institute you want. Remember, you're responding to grant guidelines that are supported by a series of institutes. So if we want our proposal on the mental health of adolescent girls in Jharkhand in India, we want that to go to the National Institute of Mental Health. Then the bio sketches, then a detailed budget. And those budgets need to closely parallel the timeline and the data collection processes for the first year and all remaining years. And then a full-scale budget justification, not included in the in those page limits, that justifies every major expenditure. I said timeline, and letters of support from community institutions, from collaborating institutions, and others. Submission goes through grants.gov, and if you look at it, it's not easy for first-time support staff to help you. And though it's 7 to 13 pages in the grant, all this material generally adds up to at least 100 pages or more. Next slide. So its initial review, it's assigned either to an ad hoc committee if it's an RFA, or to a standing review committee, which is usually the PAs. The review could take 6 months unless it's on a particular fast track. 3 reviewers are assigned to review and score each application. If the application ranks in the lower 50%, it's reported as not scored. If it's in the top 50%, the 3 reviewers discuss the scores in front of the committee, present your proposal, discuss the scores, and set a high or low range of score for the rest of the committee, resulting in an impact score. And as the previous speaker, this is the reverse. The lower the score, the better your results. So if you're in the 1 to 2.5 range, you're in the fundable range. Next slide. So in summary, why do you want to do this? This is terribly painful. So much work, so much needs for resources and support even before you get a grant. Highly competitive, complex applications. For those of us who've been at it a long time, unlike Dr. Gunawardena, we've all experienced failures and successes, so why bother? Because I would say it's recognized as highly prestigious, it provides the best funding for research, it establishes the PI as global researchers, the PRIs are invested with the ability to make decisions over the course of the research rather than many other funding opportunities. There's great trust in the PI once it's been successful, and one successful application can lead to others. So my final thought is, if you don't play, you can't win. And I wish you the greatest good luck and appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us, Professor. It was an honor to have you, and thank you for joining with us today, especially despite of the time zone differences. Once again, thank you very much. I would like to remind you all again, if you have any questions, clarifications, please feel free to use the chat box and Q&A box to post your questions. Also, we will be sharing the recording of this session and the presentations of speakers in due course. So please keep an eye on that. As the next international speaker for today, we have Professor Yuan Song Wei, who will be sharing information about the China Aid program. Professor Wei is the Director of Laboratory of Water Pollution Control, Research Center for Eco-Environmental Sciences, Chinese Academy of Sciences, Deputy Director of CAS TWS Center of Excellence for Water and Environment. He was awarded Bachelor of Fine Chemical Engineering from Jiangxi Polytechnical University in 1990, Master of Environmental Engineering from Dalian University of Technology in 1995, PhD in Environmental Engineering in 2000, respectively. He is the PI of over 30 projects funded by National High Technology Research and Development Program of China, National Major Science and Technology Projects for Water Pollution Control and Management of China, National Natural Science Foundation of China, CAS, local governments and enterprises. Over to you, Professor.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you. So I will share thank you, the host introduction. I will share my presentation. Okay. So wait a minute. Can you see my slide?
Yes, sir, we can see it. Please put it in the presentation mode. Okay, now go.
Yeah.
Now, fine. Thank you.
Thank you. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So, it's my pleasure to share my experience for the international cooperation on science and technology. So, my topic is focused on the international cooperation of science and technology with China. So, and as we know, so the United Nations announced the international cooperation for the SDG. So, as we know, there are 17 SDG cooperation, SDG goals, 17 sustainable goals, SDG goals. So, and during in my research area, we focus on the SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, and also related to some good health and well-being. So you see from this 17 SDG. So the last one is the partnerships for the goals. So as we know, Sri Lanka government announced a goals in the future several years, the water for all. So how we can achieve such goals? So the cooperation is very important. So we can see from this is the international cooperation. So we can see there's SDG can only be realized with strong global partnerships and cooperation. So it clearly mentions this is cooperation. So a successful development agent requires inclusive partnerships at the global, regional, national, and local levels. Then this will build upon principles and values and up a shared vision and shared goals, placing people and the planet at the center. So it is the same for our research. And for example, in this global goal, this SDG goal 17 has 19 targets, including 5 finance target, technology 3 target, capacity building, and trade and system issues. For example, especially for the young talents, for Sri Lanka young talents and Sri Lanka young scientists, I think the capacity building is, I think it is very, very important. For example, this capacity building should enhance international support for implementing effective and targeted capacity building in developing countries to support national plans to implement all the sustainable development goals, including through north to south, south to south, and triangular cooperation. So from this SDG, so we can realize the international cooperation is very important for our future. So, sorry, it doesn't move. I'm sorry.
Professor, you might have to disable this laser point.
Okay, so wait a minute. I will again. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
Please take your time.
Yeah. Okay, I will start again. Yeah. So I think for this is the international cooperation.
Professor, you have to share the slides.
Yes, I already shared the slide.
We can't see the slides.
Okay, we can see. Okay. I share again.
Yes, please do so.
Yeah, thank you. So I share. Can you see this slide?
Yeah, now great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, okay. So, and for international cooperation, especially for the research cooperation, I think in the several speakers mentioned lots of key issues. I think there are 3 factors we should consider. One is the key issue. This key issue related to science or technology. So for the proposal, this issue is the most important, I think, as the issue. So for the scientific issue, so this is all technology issue. This is the basis for your proposal. And the second, so if you have the issue, so where we can find the partner. So this is the partner is very, very important. So for the young talent, for young students, So you need to find a supervisor or professor or host institution. So this is the partner is also very, very important. Then we can find some finance. There are different programs, research program and scholarship for young students. There are lots of scholarships and fellowship for young scientists. Lots of fellowships for this. I think this is three parts: key issue, partner, and finance. Okay, so this is for the proposal. I think, and but because in the past several years, I have very close cooperation with Sri Lanka. So I think maybe it's a very good way for the young talent or young students. If you can study in China as a PhD and a master, it will be much better to carry out international cooperation. For the young scientist, like the postdoctor, visiting scholar, that will be much better. So I think for your future, future research in international cooperation, especially with China, I think you need to find key issue, science and technology key issue. The second, you need to find a very strong partner. This strong partner including maybe the professor or host institution. And also there are different ways for do that. So you can try to find some program like the scholarship or fellowship. So I think I will briefly introduce some of the key programs, international research cooperation in China. I think one is from the Ministry of Science and Technology of China. So each year, most will call for application of international cooperation program. They including the USA, European, Japan, developing countries, lots of things. Generally, the time period is roughly 3 years, and financial support based on different programs. The money is different, but for this one, that will be much better to set up to all sign MOU between most of China and some Ministry of Science and Technology of Sri Lanka. If this level, ministry level, if there is a ministry level MOU, they will set the joint research program, something like that. If don't, maybe they need some, for example, we also call for cooperation along the Bear and Road initiative. So sometimes this is from our country. So this will such ministry level MOU is okay. We don't need. But if we in the future for Sri Lanka, maybe we can consider to send the ministry level MOU at the most between countries. And the second is the National Science Foundation. It's the same for the most. If we have a joint if we want to apply for a joint research program, that is if they are both countries, some National Science Foundation have such a MOU will be much better. But also don't worry. We also will each year we will call for international cooperation, including the developing countries. So if you find a strong partner, they can prepare such a proposal, and based on both sides interested key issue to prepare the proposal. For this, so you also can see the details. For example, I will make an example research fund for international scientists call for proposal. in the National Science Foundation. For example, there are 3 types of grant this year. This is already finished. And so there are 3 levels, 1, 2, 3. So the duration is roughly 2 or 3 years from generally this one. And also for the different amount of the budget. For example, each year, this is for the each year. And if you get, so that will be good. So that different level is 200,000 RMB each year, and 400,000 RMB, and 800,000 RMB each year or project. These are 3 different. So for these 3 different levels, for example, the first level, it should be within this past 6 years, the doctor degree. So you need a doctor degree. Generally, that is very important. And if you don't have doctor degree, so maybe you will have you need to have a senior academic title, like associate professor, professor, something like that. So that is be very important. And there also for this submission, there's 2 steps. Submission by the applicants. So you should need, first you need to find a partner, and based on this, you submit this to your partner. Then the partner will review your the proposal, and the host institute also will review. Then it's okay. There will be submission by the host institution. So this is for this one. I just show you, and also, but I think in Sri Lanka, I know lots of young students don't have the PhD degree. So maybe it's a good way for you to study in China. So generally, there are several key programs for study in China. One is the Chinese government scholarships. This Chinese government scholarships, this is in charge of by the Chinese Scholarship Council. So each year they will call for application. Is roughly start in December. The end of application in the March, in the end of the March. So that is very important. So for this one, maybe you can check different universities. And for these CSC scholarships, their stipend, month stipend is different. For PhD, roughly 5,000 RMB. For the master, it's roughly 3,500 RMB each month. And the other one, so you also can select to start in Chinese Academy of Sciences. So there is a kind of scholarship, the InRO scholarship. So each year, the InRO scholarship will call for application at the end of the year, roughly start in December, the end in the end of March. And but this the stipend a little bit higher than the Chinese government scholarship. For PhD, is roughly RMB 6,000 or 7,000 RMB. For the master, 3,000 RMB. Master a little bit later. So and each year, so since 2015, so and there are more than 32 Sri Lankan students studying in Chinese Academy of Sciences based on our cooperation program. And so in the later, I will brief introduce. So and each year, we have the meeting with the University of Peradeniya to introduce this InRO scholarship with the Sri Lanka students last year since 2018 till now. So and more Sri Lanka students are interested in studying in Chinese academic science, this InRO scholarship is very good. And also there are other scholarship, the UCAS scholarship. This is in charge of by the University of Chinese Academic Science. So at the same time, start from the December, end of in the March. So the month stipend is similar. Okay, and but anyway, this PhD stipend a little bit later. But the Chinese Academic Science will also ask the supervisor give more. So generally, there will be similar to the Chinese government scholarship, 5,000 RMB each month. For this, don't worry. So so this is very important information. So for young Sri Lanka students, I think studying in China to apply for the scholarship may be a good way for. And also, for example, this other ways, China aid program. This is a little bit complicated. This is not for the research. This is for the engineer project, a little bit huge. So, but also I will share you. So this is JRDC in Sri Lanka, in Kandy. So this is a mobile vehicle for water quality analysis. So this is a little bit complicated. Maybe it's not suitable for the research. And it will take more time to apply for such a China aid program. So just for maybe water board, that will be good for the water board. Okay. So and then before me there are several speakers mentioned how to prepare your research proposal. So I think for the proposal, you need to answer these 4 questions: why, and what, and how, and who. So this is why. That is very important. This is the background and the key issue, and the scientific key issue. And also the manager of this project, and also what you want to do, research objectives and the contents and the scientific issue, and also how to carry out your research. That will be, you need proposed methodologies. This method should be advanced and innovative, and that is very, very important. So your research content, your methodology, and should be innovative. That is very, very important. And I think I also told you. So who is your partner? This strong partner is very, very helpful for you to win the grant. So you must, or you try to find a stronger partner. So, and also maybe for young scientists, they also will say, what, do you have any existing cooperation? If no, doesn't matter. So you also should tell the community the necessity of proposed cooperation and your cooperation, the arrangement. So all of this is very, very important. And also, for example, if this is the finance support from the China, so the Chinese version proposal is the most important. English version is also important, but the most important is the Chinese version, because the finance is from the China, and the community maybe is also measured from the China. So that is this is the key issue. So that is why I told you, partners is the most important. And for example, and I make a case study. So And in 2018, so I and Professor Shami got a joint research project from National Science Foundation China and National Science Foundation Sri Lanka. So our this research is the membrane folding mechanism and control for high pressure driven membrane process and dialysis reverse purifying groundwater with DOM and high hardness in CKD affect areas of Sri Lanka. So this is a long title, but why we select this one? So you know there is the keys for this proposal. Background, just CKDU, because you know CKD is a burning issue in Sri Lanka. So how to prevention and control the CKDU? The safe drinking water is very important. So that is why we say provide safe drinking water for people in the CKD area with these membrane technologies and membrane technologies. So this is our background. But what is the scientific issue? So we need to understand the membrane folding mechanism of these membrane technologies. Because why we select this technology? Because in the past, so we did some research together, find something okay. And then what is our research objective to develop safe drinking water supply technology with membrane technology? And so including this research objective, we divided 4 research contents. So first, we need to understand the water quality, the characteristics in the CKDU. So this is we need to understand, especially the DOM. The second, we also need to make evaluation the existing the RO drinking water stations current status and the challenges, and understand that the following. And then we, based on this field work, so we need to develop the technology, national NF and RO and DDR, so to understand what is factors that impact their performance, like the membrane folding. Okay. So for this proposed methodology application, we use the field investigation, lab work, and pilot study. This is general, but during the lab, for example, for the field investigation, we focus on the DOM, dissolved organic matters. Okay, we use some innovative methods to do this analysis. For the lab work, we use the innovative method to do the research related to the membrane folding. And also after that, we will make the pilot study. So in the Sri Lanka. So that is our proposed methodology. And so for this, and also, and who? So I and Professor Shani. So to do that. So during our members, there are 3 parts: CAS, University of Peradeniya, and the Water Board. So, and based on this, we focus on this some result. I show you there's some water quality analysis in groundwater. Just show you some results. I don't tell you the details. So, but we say there's something the DOM maybe should pay more attention. You know, this is the first time to report the DOM in groundwater in the CKD area. So we also use the WQI method to make the water quality assessment of groundwater in the CKD area. And so we then do the pilot study. So this is nanofiltration drinking water station. This is the EDR. So based on this, so we can show our people. So that is our research. So why we do that? So we that is we from this CKD burning issue. So Sri Lanka knows this very well. So I don't mention too much. But there is what is the challenge for research. Now, have been put forward so far. WHO water is one part of the factors. So this water quality and CKDU, and this is from the literature. We from this literature, okay? And this is many hypotheses, hypotheses for this. So there is for water. So then we can, based on this is the key issue, Sri Lanka key issue. So we try to cooperate together. So we try to, for example, this is the first MOU between the ministry level, the CAS, General Consensus, with the Ministry of Water Supply. So there are the 4 targets. And they identify this and the groundwater technology, establish GRDC, and carry out education training. So based on this MOU, so there are the 4 general objectives, 8 forms of cooperation. So this is the first one you just mentioned, the research project. This is for the whole project. Okay, so we can do lots of things. Joint research, establish GRDC, education and training, bilateral symposium, exchange of visiting, cooperative research project, field investigation, exchange information, publication, articles. So in the past 5 years, we make great progress. We just mentioned, so just like framework, joint research, technology stability, and capacity building, we want to do some CKD core studies and safe drinking water supply. So, and in the past several years, so we based on this is the key issue. We get lots of the finance support from China side. So this is China Grant project, the China Aid program, this is 81 million RMB. This is CAS program from our CAS, they're nearly 30 million RMB. And this CAS is supported on CKDU ideology 3 RMB. And this is joint research, National Science Foundation of Sri Lanka, from China side, 8 million. So based on this, so if we can find some key issue, we can do lots of work together. So there are different levels. For example, for research, we can use this joint research. If we, for the engineer project, we use this one. And we also, for the exchanging, the visiting education, we use this CAS. So we can do lots of something like that. So if we can find the key issue, if we can find a stronger partner, so that is not so difficult to find the finance. Okay. So for example, this is for the joint center. This is already there, GRDC, so instrument and the GRDC, the construction area is 5,000. And also something, this is a mobile instrument. And this is instrument and facility. And also for the education. So I told you, so from 2015 to 2000, this year, they are based on our this cooperation, the GRDC, there are 32 Sri Lankan students studying in CAS, including 14 PhD students and 18 master students, 4 Pi-5 fellowships, all from University of Peradeniya, 4 professors, last year 2 and this year 2. Okay, and already 8 students graduate, including 5 PhD students. Okay, so I told you just mentioned. So last year, answer scholarship, among the answer scholarship, there are 17 Sri Lanka students are awarded, but based on our cooperation recommendation, 11 are awarded. So that is, so we can set up very strong, very excellent the cooperation for the future. So I think for the young students and for the young scientists, So if studying in class or visiting scholar fellowship, maybe it may be a good way for your future to carry out the research. During all of this, you also need to prepare your proposal. Okay, so this is for the training. This is for the training. I just share my experience and of cooperation with Sri Lanka. So I think in the past several years, our cooperation is very successful. We greatly appreciate all of your support from the National Center Foundation Sri Lanka and University of Peradeniya, Ministry of Water Supply, Ministry of Health, and the Water Board, National Institute of Fundamental Studies Sri Lanka. So thank all the Sri Lanka friends, colleagues, students for the support our cooperation. I think if you want to win an international grant, the key issue is the most important. The second is you need fund a well-strong partner. Then that will be a very good way to fund the financial support. That is my experience and idea. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Professor Wei.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us, and it was an honor to have you. And once again, thank you very much for joining with us despite of the time zone differences.
Yeah.
So for our participants, if you have any questions, clarifications, please post them in the chat box or the Q&A box. We will discuss them at the end of the session during the Q&A section. Since we had Professor Wei from China discussing about opportunities in China, next we will invite Professor Tilak Gamage, who has personal experience in China conducting research and collaborative projects, to share his personal experience in China with us. So Professor Tilak Gamage currently serves as a senior professor at the Department of Limnology and Water Technology, University of Ruhuna. He graduated from University of Ruhuna in 1992 and obtained his master's degree in environmental sciences in 1996. He subsequently entered the Graduate School of Science and Engineering at Saitama University, Japan, to pursue a PhD in environmental engineering. Professor Tilak Gamage is a recipient of Vice Chancellor's Award for the most outstanding convener of the international conferences and promoter of international relations in 2014. In recognition of his extensive involvement to promote international affairs, he was also awarded the prestigious Guangdong Provincial Science and Technology Cooperation Award in 2019, which is an esteemed international cooperation award in China. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, India. I think I am audible.
Yes, we can hear you well.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vindya. And good afternoon, actually, to our participants. And it's my responsibility given to me, actually, at this session is to take you through a pictorial journey that is showing the experiences what we collected with this collaboration with China. And and I want to thank University of Peradeniya and National Science Foundation who invited me and to this webinar to share my experience with collaboration with China. So then quickly, actually, I will not take much time. I really want to, start another meeting, and therefore that I want to, as soon as possible, take you through this journey and complete my presentation. And in this presentation, I will discuss a few things about the past, present, and future, and our journey of this collaboration started in, of course, long time back, but it was came to official platform in 2014 in conjunction with the visit of Chinese President Premier Xi Jinping, and the President of Chinese Academy of Sciences visited at that time, same time in Sri Lanka, and then we were able to sign one key agreement, that is on the agreement on cooperation between Minister of Higher Education as well as Minister of at that time Water Supply and Drainage, Minister of City Planning and Water Supply, respectively. And and also that later number of several agreements were signed in 2017 and 2016 separately, and in the higher education sector, that we again signed a separate agreement with Chinese Academy of Science, University of Rune, and University of Peradeniya later. Actually, up to this point, before come to this point, that we started this relationship in 2009-8 somewhere. I happened to visit China in 2011. And this is one workshop that I participated. At this point, that I had a very fruitful discussion with Professor Dong Chuan, who invited me. He was the deputy director of South China Sea Institute at that time. So that with that initial, as Professor Wei mentioned, really a very good researcher from the other end is very important. That's one of the key success when you start a research project. But you have to have a very understandable research partner from the other end. So that the success, if I have achieved anything because of that. So this, with that initial setup that what we laid in 2011, with that we signed agreement in 2012 with the University of Rune, with the Deputy Vice President of Chinese Academy of Sciences. Sorry. And the agreement signed was to set up a joint observatory. And we started very simple way, very small project, and then we expanded it to other areas. And in 2012, I think we wanted to establish a joint platform where all the researchers can come and contribute to the center. So that is how we started. With that, we thought that we will set up a platform where now we call CSLCR, the China Sri Lanka Joint Center for Education and Research. So that the part of land from the University of Rune was allocated to establish a center. And in 2015, that we officially declared open this in a separate location until the construction of building completed. And this is again this is the building of the located in the University of Rune that we call China Sri Lanka Joint Center for Education and Research. And this was open with the participation of our Chairman University Grant Commission, Professor Mohan Silva at that time, with the Vice President of CAS, Professor Shi Sang. And then this is the location of our center within the University of Rune premises. And just let me briefly explain about the present situation, that actually we really wanted to expand this center, internationally recognized education and research center, and that our mission is to expand the boundaries of science education, because science has no borders, and we wherever that we join, from whom that it doesn't matter, and it's because of science. And then this research part and the education part and the training part I will briefly explain. And as a part of this project, we opened our avenues to apply our students to Chinese Academy of Science University of Chinese Academy of Sciences, a group of students, around 17 students were selected at the first round, and then they were given the opportunity to study master's degree at the University of Chinese Academy of Sciences. And before they leave, this is the picture that taken at the certificate awarding ceremony. They met the vice chairman of the University Grant Commission with the vice chancellor University of Rune at that time, and then we took a group photograph at that time. And then we were invited to visit University South China Sea Institute and the Chinese Academy of Sciences headquarters. The Professor Mohandi Silva at that time, the chairman of University Grant Commission, and also the Consular General of Sri Lankan Consular General in Guangzhou that also visited the South China Sea Institute number of times. With that, and also this just to show that a group of students that who were studying at that time at the South China Sea Institute, and we were invited from the University of Rune for this visit. Professor Mirani, who's the Dean Graduate Studies, and the Professor Ashanti participated to this journey visit. And then this is again a picture that taken at the second round of scholarships award ceremony that were taken with the participation of chairman, vice chairman, and the representation of the representative from the Chinese Academy of Embassy, Chinese Embassy in Sri Lanka. And then at the graduation ceremony, this picture was taken, and some of our students were graduated with the other Chinese students. And this was a very great opportunity. And in appreciation of that, at that time, the Consular General in Guangzhou also joined with us for this ceremony convocation. And part of that, actually, in the University of Rune, we were able to establish a gold medal for most outstanding marine science student, and that is the education part. Actually, I really wanted to show you, and again that this is something related to research. And for the Professor Wei explained research fellowship program that we call P5. And that is a fellowship program offered by the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Anyone who's interested to, pay a short visit to China and have a collaboration with Chinese counterpart, this scheme is a very good opportunity. 2 of our members under this program were supported, and they spent their time at the South China Sea Institute of Oceanology. And once a year, actually, there is an official Indian Ocean expedition organized by South China Sea Institute. Their research vessel is coming to Colombo every year. And in conjunction of this visit, we were able to organize a training program for Sri Lanka Navy. And also, similarly, the opportunity that because some of our selected number of students were given opportunity to join this expedition. And the picture shows that some of our students are engaging on board training while they are expedition to Indian Ocean. And again, this is actually once a year. This was happening in 2015, 2016 as well, and until up to 2019. Now that because of this COVID situation, this was not happen during the last year. And then during this expedition, this is just to show that the transect, that the information that we collected during the expedition. And again, that regarding the joint collaborative research, and we have been able to publish number of research publications in key journals in this area. Marine sciences, and these are some of the key journals published jointly with South China Sea Institute under this project. And also, in addition to that, we conduct the international symposium every year. And this first symposium was held in 2015 in Colombo. At that time, with the participation of the Chinese ambassador in Sri Lanka, and as well as the States Ministry, Dr. Mohanlal Grero participated as the keynote speakers to this first event. And then consecutive years that we were able to conduct this up to 2019. Also in 2020, we conducted this session online. So that our key partners are actually NARA and Central Environmental Authority and Marine Pollution Prevention Authority and Meteorology Department in Sri Lanka. Then they were given the chance to organize once in every year that this event and their premises. And in addition to that, our Professor Dong Xiu was in appreciation of his contribution. That is also important part. If you want to, have a successful project, that appreciation also should be there. And in contribution, considering the contribution made by Professor Dong Xiu Wen, we were able to appoint him as adjunct professor, and we were given him the honorary doctorate by the University of Luna. And with this opportunity, actually, we got another opportunities to join some other collaboration. Actually, this is as a part of that we were invited to be a party of the Beijing Declaration. We were the first few members that were able to join this collaboration that was initiated by Chinese Academy of Sciences. This was the first meeting that Chinese Academy of Sciences really wanted to establish an international arm where we call ANSO, Alliance of National Scientific Organizations. Foreign organizations or the national bodies are connected with Chinese Academy of Sciences in this exercise, actually able to be the first few members representing University of Luna and Sri Lanka, and also University of Peradeniya was in the same level with us. And among the few members, the delegates were together were taken a photograph. And again, that one of our future activities, those are some of our past events and how that we were able to develop in our road of success. And that in the future that we were trying to establish a marine science research network in the Indian Ocean. With that experience that what we have collected during the last few years, and know that along the maritime Silk Road that we are trying to understand the key importance, and that one of that is actually the monsoon behavior. Indian Ocean play a very big role in triggering the monsoon. That is one of the key aspect of this our Indian Ocean research, and also it's one of the key area that we was paying attention to during the Indian Ocean expedition as well. And this will be those areas will be taken into consideration for future expansion as well. And you know that we have a very how to say that there's a very big issue in our Indian Ocean, that whale population has to because of this east-west bound sea traffic lane, our whale population are facing actually a threat. Because that some of the waves strike on ships and then that damage, and those some of the pictures were taken after they were hitting to vessels, and that is also one of the key area of our research that to happen in future. And this is the starting of ANSO, and I participated as a key member representing Sri Lanka to formulate the constitution of ANSO. And that when was started in 2014 or 15, this activity. That was in 2017, Pakistan. Right, and then our future direction that with the collaborations with the other national institutes in Sri Lanka, Then now I move to the Peradeniya chapter. Actually, in parallel to this activity, as Professor Bay mentioned, the one of the area that we handle at the University of Runa specifically focused to marine sciences, and this part actually is this chapter basically under the same the two centers actually we have in Sri Lanka. One is in University of Ruhuna and the one is in University of Peradeniya. University of Peradeniya basically focus on water technology. And the center, as Professor Day mentioned, that the sum of the information that they jointly established this collaboration with our other Sri Lankan counterparts together with the University of Peradeniya to address the CKDU issue mainly. And some of the key facilities and equipments allocated in the center with the support of Chinese, with the Chinese support. And those are the JRDC was actually one of the key center now that helping to understand the issue that with our National Water Supply and Drainage Board and the ministry. So that's what that's only that I have to highlight here at this important webinar. Particularly, and I want to mention that there are a lot of opportunities with the with Chinese Academy of Sciences if you explore through the Chinese partnerships in building Chinese relationships. I think the best place is the Chinese Academy of Sciences if you want to establish a research with China. And with my experience and also that our students, those who have completed their master's degree at the with the Chinese University of Chinese Academy of Sciences, and now they are in very good places. Some of them are now in Australia, and some of them are in USA, and some of them are in actually some other countries are there studying, Hong Kong. There are a number of very good cases that I can give you, and those who have got this opportunity through Chinese Academy of Sciences and how far they have gone is actually is a kind of matter to be happy, because that we really as teachers we always want to see that our students go, achieve their whatever the goals that they desire. So then with that, I want to conclude this presentation and thanking the Chinese Academy of Sciences and InRO, and also the organizing this webinar, National Science Foundation and University of Peradeniya. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your experience with us. Anyone who is interested on exploring opportunities in China would have gained much knowledge and information about Chinese opportunities. So once again, thank you very much. So we have reached the halfway milestone of today's session, and I am pretty sure all of you had a fruitful time gaining more knowledge and information on international grants, proposal writing, etc. Once again, I would like to remind you all that if you have any questions, clarifications, please feel free to use the chat box and Q&A box to post your questions. Since we have reached the halfway milestone, we are going to take a small break to refresh ourselves. We will be back in 3 minutes, exactly 3 minutes. So stay connected with us.
Technology does not go beyond human brain. technology does not go beyond human brain.
This is the place you meet your own self. Knowledge is our passion.
We create
And control. Ideal place to develop the knowledge,
attitude and skills.
stands on the fountain of knowledge.
Join SLIIT to discover your future.
Okay, so we are back after the break, a small break. So we have reached the last session of today's event. And of course, we have several distinguished speakers lined up to share their knowledge and experience with us. This session is specially dedicated to experience sharing, where our distinguished speakers will share their own experiences, stories regarding their research work, research visits, field visits, etc. As the next speaker for today, we have Professor Ranil De Silva, who will be sharing his Japan experiences with us. Professor Ranil De Silva is the principal investigator of Neuromolecular Diagnostics and Neurobiobank, one of the largest and comprehensive biobanks in South Asia, a brain bank and gene bank of neurological diseases, and runs a free-of-charge neuromolecular diagnostic service at KDU Care, General Sir John Kothawala Defence University. He has been the principal supervisor in providing double doctorates in neuroscience with prestigious universities in the West. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vindya. And I can share the screen now.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Can you, how can I share these?
Sir, if you open your presentation.
Right. I have opened it.
And in the Zoom window.
Yeah.
In the Zoom window.
I clicked it also.
There is option for share screen. Did you click on it in the Zoom window?
Now seems okay. Now we can go to the full screen.
Yeah. You can put the slides in the presentation mode, sir.
No.
I can see.
Yeah, just below this, the PowerPoint. Slideshow.
When I share, it goes to something else. Can you see now the sharing?
We can see the slide deck, sir. If you make it larger or if you expand the size, I think it would be okay.
Can you all see me the slides? No, not yet, or can you see the slides or no?
We can see the slide deck, sir, all the slides.
Now?
Now okay. Great,
Right.
sir. You can go ahead.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'll just try to share some of the work that we got involved and where the young people, especially the young students, could get involved. Now, what I am trying to talk is a success story of international cooperation with Japan. And one of the institutes that we worked was a National Institute of Advancement Industrial Science, AIST, and that is supposed to be the 7th innovation center in the world. So, I mean, what is AIST? And as I said, it is the 7th innovation center in the worldwide, and it has large areas of subject area like environment, material, bioscience, and whole heap of things. And this is the center, one of the campus, and there are 7 campuses. And you could see the important part that I wanted to emphasize here is their patent applications and their royalties. And you could see this has resulted them being the 7th innovation center in the worldwide. And they have a whole heap of activities that are taking place, drug discovery, bio production, and stem cells, and whole heap of things. And we will try to see how I was able to achieve this. Now, we had a MOU in 2016, and I was able to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And one was AIST Japan, and the other one was to get DBT, the Department of Biotechnology of Minister of Science and Technology, India. So this agreement is between University of Sri Javadana, the Vice Chancellor at the time, and then we have the Indian Secretary for DBT, and of course the Director for AIST Japan. So it was a trilateral collaboration between Sri Lanka, Japan, and India, and it was witnessed by His Excellency, the Japanese ambassador, and myself. And that this resulted in establishing a thing called DIE Lab. Now, DIE Lab is, you could see, D for DBT India, A for AIST India, Japan, and then, of course, the other one is Laboratory for Advancement Biomedical Science. So this was started in 2016. And you could see in 2017, Indian Prime Minister.
नमस्कार, मैं पूजा वशिष्ठ और आप देख रहे हैं वन इंडिया हिंदी यूट्यूब चैनल। भारत दौरे पर आए जापान के पीएम शिंजो आबे और पीएम मोदी की मौजूदगी में दोनों देशों के बीच कई अहम समझौते हुए। इनमें साइंस और तकनीकी क्षेत्र में इंटरनेशनल जॉइंट एक्सचेंज प्रोग्राम शुरू करने, जापान के AIST और भारत के DBT के बीच जॉइंट रिसर्च कॉन्ट्रैक्ट शुरू करने, DBT और नेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ एडवांस साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी के बीच MOU, रिसर्च से संबंधित मामलों में सहयोग से जुड़े समझौतों पर हस्ताक्षर।
So you could see the importance of 2016 Sri Lanka ventured into this, but then of course the Prime Minister of Japan visiting India, they consolidated on this. So now this DIE Lab, you could see this is in AIST Japan, the one big wall they have. The DIE Labs globally, there are so much in India has developed this, And in Asia, Indonesia, South Korea, China, they also have developed. So what really happens with this dialogue is that once a month, there is a series which I can share with NSF so that others could join with us. And then every month there is a newsletter coming out, and therefore we can interact with many of these centers in India, and also you can see large number of centers in Japan. So this is a network which we have worked through, this MOU, the dialogues. So therefore, this will allow us to infiltrate into Japan as well as India. Then also, to do this, we need funding. And one of the areas that we had to work out was the Sakura Science Foundation. And of course, we had funding from the DBT India. So this is some of the pictures where the Japanese, the Sakura Foundation visited University of Sri Jawadinapura, and where we made a consolidated attempt to secure and get this utilization. So as a result, you could see what we achieved. We received funding from IST Japan to work on the health benefits of our own Ceylon cinnamon, and we have gone a long way, and this is being funded, and we have really found out, confirmed that for osteosarcoma, that Ceylon cinnamon has a therapeutic, and therefore going for drug development and cell culture. Then from a younger aspect of it, there are a large number of scholarships available with AIST Japan, where they advertise, but unfortunately for the last 2 years, I mean, they were not advertised. And so any Sri Lankan, not necessarily from particular university, could apply for this. And it's a competitive process there, where they allow from all over the world, they apply for this. And therefore, I'm very happy to say that 2 Sri Lankan students consecutively got the 2016 and 2017 got 2 gold medals for their poster presentation and training in AIST Japan. So therefore, this is a golden opportunity which opens Sri Lanka to Japan, and then possibly through this mechanism, we may be able to foster exchange of students, not only to Japan, but also to the dialects in India. So this has taken place. I don't have all the numbers of the students who have been going through this process for various training programs, workshops, and PhD programs. But this is a link that we have developed between China, between Japan and India and Sri Lanka. So I mean, what I could say is this comes every year, and the students could apply. And also, this is when I was with Tokyo. What I went the Asia Foundation on Neuropathology. I made a presentation about neuropathology in Sri Lanka. We don't have a sub-specialized in neuropathology. So therefore, if anybody is listening, MD neuropathology, there is a scope at Department of Neurology and Bioscience Research Center in Tokyo for full-fledged 2-year, full-funded MD program, and even up to leading up to PhD. So therefore, my take-home message here is that this would pave way for both academic as well as industrial. So here we could see the Japanese embassy was very much, the Sri Lankan embassy in Japan was interested in linking AIST, DBT and Sri Lanka program into a private-public partnership, which is now open for anybody. And so therefore, what I'm saying, the young scientists, young students from Sri Lanka, there is an exchange program for students and faculty members and researchers, research projects and publications, developing innovative and value-added natural products and nutraceuticals, which is ongoing. And even in the field of engineering and robotics, it's available. So it's up to some students to contact AIST, get hold of the research supervisors, and they can move forward. So thank you. That's 10 minutes presentation, which was requested from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us, sir. So anyone who is interested on exploring opportunities in Japan would have gained much knowledge and information. Once again, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
So as the next speaker for today, we have Dr. Darshana De Silva, who will be sharing his USA experience with us. Dr. Darshana De Silva is currently head of the Biomedical Lab 2 and a senior lecturer in the Department of Practical Clinical Sciences at Faculty of Medicine, General Sir John Kotalawala Defense University, Ratmalana. He obtained his BSc degree in biology from Truman State University, Missouri, USA, 1994, and his PhD in microbiology and immunology from Pennsylvania State University College of Medicine in year 2000. With over 7 years of overseas experience working at top-level infectious disease and immunology laboratories, he has over 65 international publications. He was ranked 25th in Sri Lanka according to AD Scientific Index, World Scientist and University Rankings in 2021. Over to you, sir.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Dr. Darshan.
Okay, fine. I'll get started then. Okay. Thank you for inviting me. I'd like to thank the National Science Foundation and the International Relations of the University of Peradeniya and the Sri Lanka Academy of Young Scientists for organizing this and inviting me as well. So it's been an excellent seminar so far, and I'll try to briefly give you my talks. It's not easy coming. I presume I'm the last speaker, so I'll try to keep my talk to 10 minutes and move on. Okay, so my affiliations have been mentioned. So this was just a simple slide that I want to put before I moved on to basically my background and everything. So it's important. I think a lot of the speakers have already addressed this. And I think Dr. Stephen also mentioned quite a few things that I wanted to mention, but I'll just briefly go over this. So the main applicant, it's very key, they have a strong CV and recent publications, and of course, a strong local team must be included for the application. Another thing I wanted to mention is that, especially when you're going for things like the request for applications, like what Dr. Chensu mentioned, is that you have access to data or samples and others have difficulty obtaining or a unique answer to a problem that you're trying to address. So it's important, you have this when you're applying for particularly competitive grants, such as the NIH grants. And also in most cases, you must be able to address a specific need to a question being asked by the funding agency. So for example, one of the opportunities that I got was actually the NIH had awarded a grant for looking at the genetics, the human genetics, to see if they were more susceptible to severe dengue. And they had requested proposals, and one of the large, and it had been awarded. And then one of the consultants had said that you need to have Sri Lanka or India, one of the two countries included in that. So this was actually, it came up after this was awarded. And then the team visited Sri Lanka, and then the Ministry of Health was involved. I was also invited as a potential partner. And then in the end, the Ministry of Health actually decided they didn't want to do it. And then I ended up actually getting to do the project here in Sri Lanka. So it was a large project, but we were able to manage it. So sometimes just being at the right place at the right time, you can get opportunities like this as well. So briefly to move on next. So basically my background, I just wanted to give this background so that people have an idea of how got here. So I studied and worked in the United States for a long time, and then I came back in 2007. I joined a private institute, Gene Tech Research Institute, as director senior scientist. So I was a relatively junior person. I was a little, worried that whether I would be able to be working at that level. But I had a lot of support from the trustees, and someone had asked a question actually that if you're not in an academic setting, can you do research? And the answer is actually yes. So a lot of particularly US funding agencies, as long as the institute you are affiliated to has a good track record, has some track record of being established and conducting work properly, then there is no problem there. And Professor Stephen Shenson actually went through, he had one whole slide mentioning about the registrations and things. So those things take a little time, but it's actually worth your efforts, because once you get established with that, you're pretty much good to go. So when I first came here, we had a dengue grant funded by the Gates Foundation, which paid my salary for 2 to 3 years. And then soon after I joined, actually, I started looking for opportunities and applying. So one of the things, especially when it comes to the NIH, is that the ethics approval is very important, and you need to use an ethics review committee that is registered with the NIH. So I had to, because of this, I actually went with the University of Colombo ERC for ethics approval. And even though sometimes ethics committees can sort of be a pain to cater to, what I found was that having to address all their questions upfront made things very much easier down the line. And I still continue to actually use the University of Colombo ERC, because a lot of the projects, once I moved from Gene Tech to KDU, I have continued using it because they have been registered, and there's a lot of paperwork involved in keeping that registration updated. So they are registered with the WHO and the NIH. So there are things like that that we have to look out for as well. So as I mentioned, then Professor Arvind De Silva, he's not the cricketer, of course, but he's a scientist, well-known dengue research actually at the University of North Carolina. So I was so fortunate that he was one of the trustees at Gene Tech Research Institute, and he was actually the main person who actually convinced me to leave the US and come here and try. So he introduced me to a number of US collaborators, and we applied for disease-specific grants. So before I move on to talk specifically about our grants, I would like to mention something that Dr. Nanda Gunawardhan also and even Professor Janaka Ekanaga, they talked about. Unfortunately, so few people here really apply for really competitive applications, and NIH grants are actually quite competitive. And you get quite a few rejected applications also. So my success rate actually is about somewhere between 25 to 50%. So this is not just NIH, but all types of grants. So I'm constantly looking for funding opportunities and new things that I can do to basically, because it keeps you updated basically and connected to the rest of the world, as a lot of the other speakers have highlighted. So if I just move on to I'll briefly talk about two projects that I have been doing. So one of them is the dengue project that we have been involved with for quite some time. So it's funded by the National Institutes of Health, and the specific branch, Stephen talked about this as well, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. So there was a specific contract call to study the T-cell immunity in dengue. So the way a lot of these things work is that at a very high level in the US, they decide, okay, these diseases, we really have no clue about
their immunity or how we are going to make a vaccine or something like that. So they actually ahead of time, they actually fund some of these to get an idea on the basic sciences. So this dengue grant was actually funded in this manner a long time back, especially after the 9/11 attacks happened. There was a very high level review and dengue came up as one of those diseases that very little was known because there's basically hardly any cases, at least at that time, in Northern America and even in Europe. So it was a very underfunded disease. As a result, they put out this specific call. So as some of the others mentioned, dengue is something, unfortunately, we have a problem here. And I was well suited to actually step up to that role. So I have served as the primary investigator where we put in a large contract grant. And my collaborators have been the senior people. I think Dr. Anand Vijayvikrama, a lot of you probably have, let me put the laser pointer, have seen him on TV. He's one of the main infectious disease doctors. So I work very closely with him on the dengue project, and Dr. Gani Prevansa, another consultant physician. And of course, Professor Sunil Prevansa, he's the person who helped me. He's a senior person now retired, but one of the key people who helped me put all of these things together. And just to move on in the interest of time, the output from the project. So we've been running actually from 2011 to 2020. And every year, NIH requires a renewal and signing of contracts. Someone had mentioned about the problems that we have, and yes, I have faced similar problems. We can talk about it in the Q&A sessions, but I don't want to discuss it here. So we've actually had 22 joint international publications, and we've actually had about 3 publications from the Sri Lankan group alone, and 3 PhD students, 1 completed, 2 ongoing. And these are the grants, and this is a fairly large amount of money. And it's spread over the 10 years, like I mentioned. But it adds a significant, and it let me hire quite a few people. I've had about, over the last 10 years or more that I've been, it's coming approaching actually about 12 to 13 years. I've hired about probably more than 40 staff members and some have gone on to do PhDs, and some have done, continue to do PhDs with me, etc. So these are the multiple grants, and I just wanted to mention one of the papers that we had, and it has actually had a large impact because I'm not going to go into the papers. You can go and you can check so I have a website, darshandisilva.com. It's linked to the KD website as well. You can go through my papers if you're interested. So this project had a very large impact. This was one of our key papers, one of the first papers we actually had, where it has over 400 citations in Google Scholar. And we explained actually based on, I don't want to get into too much of detail, but the T-cell epitopes, we found that a lot of them were from the non-structural proteins in dengue. And this was why actually the Sanofi vaccine, which was not approved in Sri Lanka, actually why it had such low efficacy. And this was actually a major thing, contribution to the global literature. And that is why this paper has been cited so much. Like this, we've had a lot of papers and the work is continuing. This is just a quick picture of us. So every 2 years or so from the project, they wouldn't pay us directly. Of course, whatever I get from the grant goes towards my salary at GeneTech, and here it goes to, but none of the physicians are actually paid, but we have like every 2 years or so, we'll have a trip where they go there and they actually present from the clinical side to the group there. And this is Professor Alex Sethi. He's one of the world's top T-cell biologists. So if I can move on to the next project I want to talk about. So this is the melioidosis project. Some of you may have heard of it. It's actually a very rare disease. And it's sort of interesting how this came about, where the US Embassy had arranged a visit. They never gave me funds for it, but while I was in the US, they had arranged some meetings for me, and one was at the NIH Fogarty Center. And they were very interested. I had the dengue project ongoing at that time, and they included my information there, and they said, okay, if any opportunities come up. And then a group from the US Army Medical Research Institute for Infectious Disease actually had written to them and asked, who are the potential collaborators, and my name had come up, and they actually wrote to me. And then based on that, this collaboration got built up, and this was actually, they asked me to directly apply. So I was the main PI for the grant, not just the Sri Lankan PI, and then we applied. And the interesting thing was, at that time, we had very few cases of melioidosis. And again, by coincidence, Professor Vasanthi Theonasan, she actually requested me to advise at that time Dr. Inoka Korea for her thesis on molecular biology work. So I knew Dr. Inoka Korea at that time, and we sort of already had a working relationship. And so I knew about melioidosis and her cold pseudomyeliae, the disease which it causes. And we end up partnering together, and I submitted the proposal, and we actually got a large grant for this to basically, and at that time when we were looking at it, they even US AMRID, they took a chance because there was hardly any cases. I'll show you in a figure later on of cases in Sri Lanka. And since we have expanded this, and Dr. Himalaya Singh is now one of our key collaborators here. She's at ADU. She used to work with me. So this project also, so we actually, the initial project was $189,000, and we actually have 7 publications. And the key thing I'd like to highlight is 4 publications of these. First author and corresponding author are Sri Lanka. So even though it's funded by the US, we actually get a lot of credit. And the key thing is they want us to publish it. It has to be published in international journals, open access. So we make sure we budget these things in for the funding. And we renewed for 3 more years, but there was problems during the transition. And so unfortunately, I lost the grant. I'm struggling now to try to get a new grant. So this is just a quick slide showing you the impact from the project. This is when we started the project. We hardly could find any melioidosis cases. With the funding, we had sites across the country. It was all funded by the US, and right now we are finding about 100 cases. This slide is not updated. We are finding about 80 to 100 cases per day, and the setup is already there, and we are still continuing even though there is very little funding. So both these projects have had a huge impact on the health and well-being in the country, and I'm proud to have been associated with this. So I'll answer any question. This is my last slide, and I stop in the interest of time. So I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us, sir. Anyone who is interested on exploring opportunities in USA would have gained much knowledge and information from your session. Once again, thank you very much. Now we have moved to the last part of today's webinar, and it is the questions and answers session, which might be the most exciting segment for most of you from today's session. So we have been getting several questions from all of you through the chat box as well as Q&A box. Due to the time limitation we have selected few questions so that our resource persons would be able to answer your questions. And of course, I have to remind you all again, the recording as well as the presentation of today's session will be shared among you in due course, and we will direct all the other questions to the resource persons, and we will make sure your questions will get answers in due course. So we have selected few important questions, and I would like to invite Professor Shamin Jinadasa and Mr. Shantasri and Professor Janak Ekanayaka to coordinate the questions and answer session. I hope all of you are here. So there are a few questions. First one would be, what are the initiatives taken by NSF on international cooperation and research strengthening in Sri Lanka? and what are the eligibility the funders expect from researchers? I think Mr. Shantasri from NFS would be able to answer this question. Yes,
thank you, Dr. Vindya. And
initiatives taken by NSF on international cooperation and research strengthening in Sri Lanka, and what are the eligibility the funders expect from researchers? I think
what I at the in very briefly what I can highlight is that NSF has many schemes, nevertheless to foster international collaboration and cooperation. Nevertheless, for the last 2 years, what pandemic situation at the with the restriction of mobility and personal mobility, those were somewhat kept in abeyance. But very recently, we have moved on to digital platform where we have more than 800 Sri Lankan expatriates on board registered, and we are now trying linking up with them with the Sri Lankan researchers. And in fact, this webinar itself a kind of a knowledge transfer webinar where we have linked some international resource persons. So if audience have participants have specific questions, I can say one example. If a young researcher want a specific training, short-term training or 3 months scholarship, so we have some mechanisms with DAD. Professor Wei already highlighted some joint research programs, many mechanisms. So we try to link up with the researchers befittingly based on their requirement. But at the moment, I have to highlight with the resource constraints, we only facilitate kind of remote supervision, joint collaboration, knowledge transfer, knowledge exchange through the e-platform. So those are the mechanisms we have implemented to foster international collaboration. Apart from that, I have to highlight being the National Science Foundation is a focal point for many institutions like DAD in Germany, ISC and ICGB. Those institutions, all the award schemes, scholarship schemes, grant schemes, once they're ready for call, they inform it to the liaison point, to the National Science Foundation. Then we disseminate information to the international relations officers. We have a network to the universities, and so that it filtered down to the researchers. So we do the kind of liaison and channeling the relevant research proposals, maybe scholarships applications, award applications to the awarding or the relevant agency abroad. So those are the mechanisms we have at the moment to foster research collaboration and cooperation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shanta. I guess you got the answers, and I think you can refer NSF website and other websites for more details. So we have another question. How can an industry professional, not in an academia, do research? How can they find grants and collaborators? Any tips when approaching researchers to form a consortium? Could you give us some advice for budding researchers? I think Professor Ekanayaka would be the best person to answer this question. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Vindya. I really can't see why industry personnel cannot start collaborating with academia at the first place, because the academia is the one which has experience and already have network for doing research activities. So the first point of contact would be the nearest university to the industry, and the finding the right person in that industry, go and talk to him and see how good this proposal is, because we do that even right now. I collaborate with SLT and CEP and various organizations. We do research together. I think and finding the networks will be easy through that way than you try to do it. But I'm sure there are ways, there are platforms which are available for one to find networks. I know that the EU has such platforms. Similarly, sure there are similar platforms elsewhere. So these will help any industrial researcher to tap the research grants outside. But but as I told initially, it will be much easier to work with the university staff member nearby.
Hello, Professor.
Over to you, India.
Okay, thank you, sir. So I guess that would have answered your question, and I'm pretty sure if you have any further questions, Professor Ekanayake, you can contact him. He will guide you and support you.
Dr. India, can I just jump in and add something there?
Yes, so, sure, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so just to mention, I mean, there's a number of Dr. Nanda and Professor Rahul also are part of this. NSF has two arms of funding. There is the research arm and the technology development arm. Now, I've actually served on committees on both, and now even under the current tight situation, funding situation, they're actually looking at funding, especially transition research, commercializations and things like that. So NSF will probably in the near future, we're actually formulating a plan to how to get things where research has been done, but you need commercializations. So if you look at the NSF website, and you can contact people like Shanta and there's another person, Mr. Janaka Karnaratna, they should be able to help you. And there are platforms being developed by the NSF for this. So you'll hear about a lot of this in the near future. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Darshana. Mr. Shanta, anything to add from the NFS side?
Yes. Of course, as highlighted by Dr. Darshan, we have, apart from research grants, there is a grant scheme, technology grants. Of course, if it is open even for industry, so if the industry willing to join with, we encourage always joint research, public-private partnership basis, so that industry will have their industry problem. As highlighted, they can link up with the relevant university, a senior researcher, so that industry team and the research team from university will team up together and will put the proposal, so that kind of as highlighted, kind of a translational research. At the end of the day, it won't end up with just publication or PhD, but nevertheless a problem to problem to the industry side, so that industry could leverage their technology ladder or innovation ladder. So that is the one that is open for the industry. Of course, with the present developments, I have to highlight, we mainly focus priority areas, as all audience may know, national policy framework, that is vistas of prosperity. There are many broader areas for fostering international collaboration and research and technology commercialization, so that you could refer to the document, and there are high priority concern. I can say enhancing agricultural productivity with just for example, productivity with modernization, modernized technology, I mean, with the modern technology. Then even it has highlighted emerging technologies, robotics, artificial intelligence, blockchain technology. So if any entrepreneurs or industrialists focused on those areas, addressing the national priorities and come up with a proposal based on demand side, of course, NSF will consider on priority basis. Dr. Vindhya, let me give, I think, meanwhile, I had a chat with Professor Shamin. For the first question, it was felt that I answered halfly. It didn't complete. I mean, audience, there was in the chat box, there was a question by one young researcher has posted. It is easier to put a proposal and secure a grant, but the difficult part is getting the money to Sri Lankan, researchers account and signing the agreement. Whole lot of process, bureaucratic process. We all understand that is the bottleneck at the moment. Everyone aware. So, being the National Science Foundation, of course, we are alert on this problem and vigilant on this problem. We are trying our best. We have done a survey. Held up grant already approved. We came to, not all, but 327 million held up already approved, but yet to remitted to the country. So this has been brought to the, management level, and our chairman, of course, with the technology and research armchairs, getting their maximum effort to bring the issue to the national, relevant decision-making level, even top level. So at the moment, actually, as you all know, government priorities somewhat mitigating and convening the compounding problems of the pandemic situation. So little bit, it is going bit in a retardant manner. Nevertheless, we hope in time to come that we will, NSF will get opportunity to get the meeting or whatever to present the case to the relevant top decision-making level. And we hope in future there will be at least for the research community, there will be a green light, NSF making fullest effort on that. It is a matter of time. I think in a way, it is a matter of time. NSF trying our best to sort out, convince the relevant decision-making level in this regard to come up with a befitting solution to create a conducive environment to get the money from abroad and do the research in a convincing manner. That is the complete answer to the previous question, Dr. Vindhya.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shanta. I think it's very promising, and all young researchers can look forward to this process being, the complexity being reduced. Thank you very much. If we move to the next question, it's asking about subscriptions to have access to Elsevier postdoctoral funding. So how can we get full access in research websites such as Elsevier opportunities? I think Professor Atalage is here.
Yep, Dr. India, yes. Yes.
Sir, shall I repeat the question?
No, that's okay. I got the question. Yeah,
okay,
so I think this is a bit of a financial constraint that all the universities and the higher education institutes have in subscribing to Elsevier, because to get access to not only the publication, ebooks, material, but funding institutional, where I presented the platform where you could get access to the funding information, the funding authorities, the amount of funding, etc. So that's the problem where universities under these conditions especially have a difficulty. So I think sometime back, UGC and probably together with, if I'm not mistaken, National Science Foundation, they were looking at the concept of consortium, where institutes can contribute and have a common platform. So I think that kind of mechanism should be made available. If not, individual institutes should take care of the subscription. And then researchers and academics who are in these particular institutions will have access to. So that's where it stands, a bit of a leveraging needed, strategically thinking whether we should get together and go to a consortium. I think NSF, probably Shanta, can comment on that, whether what's the status of that, if NSF can take the leadership in that context and with UGC. So that's what I could provide at the moment.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm pretty sure NSF and UGC will work on that to help and encourage our young scientists to get touch with most of these valuable resources to conduct their research. Then we have another question regarding European grant opportunities such as Erasmus and Horizon 2020, etc. I think this would be probably a good question for Dr. Nanda. Dr. Nanda, are you here?
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, what are the EU grant opportunities? Please suggest some places to get to know more information about these opportunities.
Okay, answer is very simple. So actually, they have a European funding portal. So I can share the link. Actually, there are more than 200 calls per year. I think that is the largest funding body in the world, billions of euros. Okay. So they are actually, you have to have very patient to find out the different kind of calls. So they have all kind of research call. First, pure research call. Second, applied research call like Horizon, using Horizon 2020. Third one is capacity building projects. Capacity building projects for
Hello.
We'll switch to the next one.
Yes, I think Dr. Nanda got dropped.
Yeah.
He's back.
Can you hear me? But
now it's okay.
There are so many. I will read the options. First one is pure research collaborations. Second one, research with industries. Third one is staff and student exchange program. Fourth one, somebody asked question from industry. They have also opportunity to work with our universities and work with the European industries. They have a special call for that. There are 4 different kind of European projects. So the difficulty is, I have to tell that also, difficulty is finding the right project call. I think you have to have a little bit, go through the web and search and find the relevant project call for your research. I think I have done, I think this is my 6th multi-million euro project. And also when I was in Peradeniya, I think Shamin also, no? So we have developed so many, more than 20, I think, more or less exchange program with our staff members with European Union. So there are ample opportunities, but you have to find a proper call. That is my answer.
Thank you very much for your encouraging answer, Dr. Nanda. Probably our participants might have felt encouraged to apply to these fundings, opportunities and so on. Thank you very much. I think Professor Ekanayaka is still here with us as a senior professor in our country. Sir, could you please give some advices, your thoughts on the young researchers who are here today with us?
I mean, it's a very broad, open question. So I don't know whether I would be able to give. I mean, the research is a passion. Okay. The first thing is you should have that, the tendency to do research. Otherwise, don't try research because, you will get good results or you may get very bad results. Whatever it is, you need to keep on doing research. So that is, unless you have that passion, I wouldn't encourage you to get into doing research. But if you have the passion, and as Nanda and others pointed out, there are plenty of opportunities. I don't know whether the audience are aware. I was working in a UK university and I quit that university in not quit, but I decided to come to Sri Lanka in 2013. And one of the advice most of my colleagues gave me was, Janaka, don't go there. You will not find any funds for research because we know that you are a researcher. But all I can say is I never had any issue with finding funds. If you have, if you are good at doing research, there will be credibility, and that with that credibility, money will automatically come to you, whether it's a foreign funding or local funding. So, keep on to your career, the career, whatever the whatever the things that will increase your credibility, such as papers, any books or anything. And these, even though they will add, initially little bit, slowly they will start adding up, and your credibility will go up, and then you will be becoming a researcher who, in your community, somebody wants to work with you. So that is the advice I probably could give.
Thank you very much, sir. All the participants might have got encouraged with your words, since most of us are here are young researchers. I see Professor Wei is still with us. Professor Wei, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you very much for staying with us until the end of the session, despite of the time differences and so on. We highly appreciate it. And any final advices, words to our Sri Lankan young researchers here?
Yes, so I think, the finding the research grant is very important for young students and young scientists. And also, China is paying more attention to the cooperation with developing countries as well as the developed countries. So I think, and especially the genetic academic sciences has a very strong cooperation with Sri Lanka in the past several years. So I think maybe it's a good way to study and carry out research in Chinese academic sciences for the young students. If they can apply for the scholarship, like the ANSWER scholarship, Chinese government scholarship, that will be good. Because when you stay here, so you can learn lots of things from your classmates and also your supervisors, and also know how to develop the proposal and the cooperation between China and Sri Lanka. So, so that will be a very good chance. So from my experience, so we have very strong and successful cooperation with the University of Peradeniya and also Water Board. And so that is very good. So example, we already done there. So in the past, so for me, I have already 10 Sri Lanka students. 5 Sri Lanka students already finished their study. So that will be a very good opportunity. For example, when my students, Sri Lanka finish their study, when they go back to Sri Lanka, when they apply for some research grant, they also want to add me in their team. So for example, my PhD student, Nilusa, in the ITI, and recently she told me, and she applied for several research grants from Sri Lanka, and one of research project is approved. I feel very happy. Why? Because we know each other. I know your country is the key issue. So that will be very useful if young students and young scientists, if they can get the guidance from the senior colleagues, senior professors, that will be very good for their the early the development in the career. So that is my idea. And also, for young scientists, we also encourage them not only studying or cooperate with China, they also should study in America, European in Austria, Japan, and other countries. So I think there will be lots of chance, and for our students, for the young students, they will be keep contact with the NSF, University of Peradeniya, the International Cooperation Office, something like that. Make a network. That is be very important. And also for me, experience if the young Sri Lankan students and scientists, if they can get some recommendation from the Sri Lanka professors, that is be also very helpful for them to apply for the grant and the scholarship and the fellowship, because the younger partner is very, very helpful for their get the grant. That is my experience. So anyway, I wish all the Sri Lankan students and the young scientists can find the way to do their research or study with the international cooperation. So that's all. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor Faye. And we would like to thank you again for staying with us until the end of the session, despite of all the time differences and so on. So we are looking forward to work with you in future to make more collaborations with you and China. We are looking forward to that. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
For the participants, thank you very much for being an interactive audience. Hope this Q&A session was able to clarify your doubts, questions. We have a lot more questions in our chat box and Q&A box. Because of the limited time we have, we will try our best to answer these questions individually after this session. And also the recording of the session and presentation slides will be available to you in due course. So we have reached the end of today's webinar. I hope it was a fruitful session for all of you. We have a lot of distinguished panelists, speakers, international and national level senior researchers. At the last item of the agenda, to deliver the concluding remarks, I would cordially invite Ms. Nadisha Mohandiram from National Science Foundation of Sri Lanka. Over to you, Ms. Nadisha.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vindya. Actually, I'm not going to take much time because we are running behind the schedule. First of all, I would like to thank the International Relations Office, University of Peradeniya and Sri Lankan Academy of Young Scientists, SLACE, for collaborating with the National Science Foundation, Sri Lanka, to bring this webinar today as a great success. In that context, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to Professor Shamin Dinadasa, Director of International Relations Office, University of Peradeniya, and Dr. Vindya Rankodge, Secretary of Sri Lankan Academy of Young Scientists, for your excellent coordination and untiring efforts. I believe that empowering especially young researchers is an investment for the advancement of the STI ecosystem in Sri Lanka, because they are the future research leaders. So I would like to express my sincere thanks and appreciation to all eminent speakers from home and abroad for their informative and excellent presentations. I'm sure the informative presentations have enlightened researchers in preparing effective research proposals to secure international grants. So I'm not going to reiterate the key points highlighted today because of the time limitation. So writing a winning proposal to secure an international grant is very challenging due to some impeding factors. So I would like to thank Professor Rahul Atalage, Professor Janaka Ekanayaka, and Dr. Nanda Gunawardena for giving clear and whole picture on how to secure international grants. So it is very important and essential to harness foreign funding opportunities in order to leverage R&D outputs having an impact in the context of limited R&D funding within the country. So I must thank Professor Yongsan Wei and Professor Stephen Chenchul for providing us the important information about international funding opportunities. Professor Ranil De Silva, Professor Tilak Gamage, and Dr. Darshan De Silva, thank you very much for sharing your valuable experience. I'm sure your shared experience will enable participants to pitch their next proposal to international funding organizations effectively. Actually, this type of webinar cannot be realized within a day because significant efforts are needed in coordinating and preparatory works. So I would like to remind the untiring and valuable support of Professor Shamin Dinadasa, Dr. Dinushi Samarajiva, Ms. Shyamali Tennakon, and Mr. Sadaka Ediruvira from International Relations Office, University of Peradeniya. From SLACE, I must thank Dr. Vindya Rankodge for your remarkable support. Also, my sincere thanks to the team from SLIIT for being our hosting partner. From NSF, I would like to express my appreciation to Dr. Tamara Dias, Additional Director of the National Science Foundation, for delivering the welcome speech. Also, I must thank Mr. Shantasiri, Head of the International Liaison Division, for moderating the event and your utmost guidance. Also, I must thank our officers of International Liaison Division. Then I would like to extend my deep appreciation for the participants for being with us today. Finally, I can say the purpose of today's webinar has been completely accomplished and hope you all grasp the take-home message clearly. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you very much, Nadisha. Appreciating all of the people who have put their effort and tireless work into making this event successful, and all the participants for being an interactive audience. Now I would like to cordially request our panelists or resource persons to stay a little bit more to take a photograph as a souvenir for this event. Over to you, Ms. Nadisha, to continue the photograph taking process. Dr. Shamin, can we coordinate it?
Yeah, from our office also will take some.
Okay.
Yeah, and Nadisha, I think she is not the host, so.
Yes, I think Dr. Dinusha might, yeah.
Yes, I got photos, okay.
Okay. Okay, then thank you very much once again, our wonderful resource persons from all around the world. Professor Wei, thank you very much again, and all the other resource persons. Let's keep these collaborations for fruitful sessions in future as well. Hope to work with you all in future too. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you and well done. Yeah.
Very much.
Thank you.
Bye.